Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching or listening to this, which is lesson 4 of the Interpersonal Neural Synchrony course, subtitled, yes, rather a mouthful, but it covers it all. Covert and conversational hypnosis, influence persuasion, negotiation, rapid seduction, and NLP mind control style secrets for therapeutic change, pleasure, profit, and frankly pretty much any other area of life or business you can think of, as we explained in the introduction to this course. As always, it's me, Alex William Smith by birth, better known to many of you as Jonathan Royle, hypnotist, and I'm joined by my partner in crime. Again, I always do this because it makes its own mind up which side the videos goes. My partner in crime, the man who's been trained by those three-letter agencies. Question is, do I mean the FBI, the CIA, MI5, MI6, or the former furniture store, MFI? That we used to have in England. I don't know. But yeah,
actually, all my training was in sale. It would be DFS.
DFS, another. But joking aside, he has actually had training with some of those agencies, and he's got genuine, like, university educational stuff as well, you know. But yeah, I know. It's not just the weird maverick bad boy of hypnosis. So please welcome to lesson 4, the man himself, Mr. Paul Gutteridge. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, very good. Thank you very much. Very good indeed. Enjoying, oh gosh, is it? Well, it's kind of the sun's trying to creep out. So we'll say it's sunny, shall we?
It may be at your side. It's quite gloomy as I look out the window there, but hey, you know what? Life is what you make it. So I've got a few bits of housekeeping, a few bits to get out of the way, things I forgot to mention in previous episodes. Book recommendations, albeit that on 2 of these, they also lead into questions I want to ask you. So first, the 2 that don't, I have mentioned this before, but a book that I would recommend, I'm going to take my background off ever so slightly.
That's nice and clear. I can see it. Oh,
it'll be clearer when I come in. There we go, like that. This one's called Free Your Mind, The New World of Manipulation and How to Reset It. It's by Laura Dodsworth, who is a journalist and author, and Patrick Fagan, who worked for the final sort of 9 months of them being around under the name Cambridge Analytica for Cambridge Analytica. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, there is an interview on Hypnosis Week on my Celebrity Hypnotist YouTube channel in the Hypnosis Week playlist that I did with Patrick. And we mentioned this book, and having read it, I would thoroughly recommend it. It's a great overview of all areas of life, just like my documentary Extreme Danger, Extreme Hypnosis is about, how you're getting influenced, persuaded, nudged, and what not from the powers that be, from all areas of your daily life, and what you can learn from that to apply in other areas. Another book by the same author, Patrick Fagan, is this one, Hooked, subtitled Why Cute Sells and Other Marketing Magic That We Just Can't Resist. And it's got the cute doggy on the front. Later on, we'll be talking about the puppy dog selling technique and other selling techniques. But basically, this shows you the science and the psychology of effective marketing, advertising, publicity, and promotion. And although it's aimed at selling products, it also explains about using those principles for selling ideas. If you think of an idea, your outcome as being the product, effectively it is the same thing. That's what you're selling: a concept, a belief system, a perception, or such like. Put them on the floor over there. The next book of 4 that I wish to recommend today, but this first one, this leads into there will be questions following this. So this one's called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It, by Chris Voss. And as it says there, a former FBI hostage negotiator's tools for talking anyone into or out of just about anything. Now, I seem to recall that I bought this on your recommendation, Paul.
Did you indeed?
I seem to recall you mentioned to this number of conversations before we bought this back. And having gone through it, I recommend it to anyone but it is very largely in the context of negotiations. Yes, he gives examples that are hostage negotiations or talking people down who might be trying to commit suicide and whatnot. But negotiation is negotiation, even if you're negotiating a price on a product sale or negotiating and trying to steer people's decisions into choosing to go to the same restaurant as you want to that night. It literally apply in any area of life. I'm reading through it and looking at it again last night, just looking at the chapter headings. I was struck by how we have already covered pretty much, in essence, at grassroots seed level, the core underlying structures of everything that's in this book.
Oh, well.
Now, don't get me wrong, he does expand on areas more and give examples that we've not given. But I think in itself, that's another reason I'm recommending it, because if people were to get this, they will see that there is actually far more, I'm going to put it, diamonds, valuable gems to be mined from the first 3 lessons in the introduction already, and there's still more to come, than they may have realised at first, because I was struck when I went through it yesterday. Oh, bloody hell, yeah, we have covered things like that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, you know, as I say, I seem to recall you recommended this to me.
Yeah, it's a good book. He's quite direct, Chris. That's no two ways about it. He's pretty direct in his approach. I know some people. There's a lady I know who works with SWAT teams in the US when they're going in when they're going to do the negotiation side of things, and she actually says, "Oh yeah, I like that stuff." She hasn't written the book yet. I like that stuff, but she uses a bit of a softer approach. And it's different horses for different courses, isn't it, at the end of the day? But principally, they all provide the same recipe. And at the end of the day, what makes somebody a great chef, I suppose, is their flavors, the little extra spice that they add into the dish based on the recipe. And that's what different personalities bring to it. And they sell books as well. There you go.
Well, indeed. Now, this last book definitely is more of a, because we will be talking about negotiation, whether that's later today or in the next one. Just depends on how we roll. Getting through the notes I've got here. But this one harks back to lesson 1. Now, lesson 1, we spoke about the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. We spoke about right, left brain. We spoke about the amygdala, the hypothalamus, effects of trauma, blah, 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 blah. People can go back, watch lesson 1, and we have brought those things up since because they're relevant to limbic leakage, the way people think, and so on. Now, you might find this one a little bit out there.
Wait for it.
Maybe you won't. But there is, this is actually 2 book recommendations. The one I'm going to hold up and the other one that I don't actually have, I can't find my bloody copy of it. But in any event, I've been recommending for years a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And the reason I recommended it is it has a section in there about the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. It mentions about right, left brain. It mentions about how emotions affect the body and vice versa. And it also gives evidence for the mind-body connection and how your thoughts, your ease, your comfort, your relaxed, calm state, when you're in the perfect zone of the parasympathetic nervous system thing that we spoke about in previous lesson, is the road to great health and happiness and whatnot. Whereas ending up in a zone where you are more in the stress, fight, flight, freeze, worried, fear, negative zone of the sympathetic end of things can lead to dis-ease, as in D-I-S-E-A-S-E, but dis-ease, the opposite of relaxation. So it's not, you're not at ease, you're at dis-ease, but this can actually manifest as physical, organic illness, or bodily reactions, symptoms, call them what you will. And there is a list of example metaphors and phrases that people use that they end up saying in life. And they may not even be aware of it themselves that they're doing it, but they're talking about somebody being a pain in the neck, and bizarrely that individual's got neck issues. The more oh, that really gets my back up, and that person might have back issue. And it sounds a bit kooky at first, but if you look at a book, you pick it up for a couple of quid on eBay secondhand. It goes into this in depth. Now, I read this other book years ago, and I'd forgotten I'd read it actually before the Louise Hay one. And I came across a copy in a secondhand shop a couple of months back, so I got it. It was originally published in 1996, but updated in 2006 and expanded. And it's called Your Body Speaks Your Mind, Understanding How Your Emotions and Thoughts Affect You Physically, by Deb Shapiro. Now, yes, there are little bits that cross-relate into what we've spoken about body language-wise, but largely this is, and at the front it does go into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and whatnot. But this goes through all manner of things. It tells you about every area of your body, from the lungs to your knees to your abs, and it's explaining physical symptoms that people have or believe they have, because there's the whole debate of psychosomatic illness and whatnot. How seeing those things in people can, not if there's only one clue, much like body language, look for clusters of clues. One thing on its own isn't always an accurate thing, and it isn't going to apply to everyone. There will be exceptions, but can be an indicator that, using that blatant example of the person says, oh, that person's a right pain in the neck, or getting grief off the missus, and it can literally manifest as they end up with, because we're going to be talking about sales later, I'll go for the money background today, as physical symptoms. Also, those states of mind and body can have an effect or infect the way that individual may perceive things, situations, the way they would react, and things to be aware of, because you may go into an encounter with someone you think you know, and you think from previous circumstance you know how they would react to things, but because of what is currently going on in their life, whether that's something that's causing them psychological worry, stress, or whatever, or distraction, or it's their body speaking their mind, as per the context of that book, there could be things that actually don't take it for granted, in other words, is what I'm saying, that just because last time you calibrated this person, you worked out what their baselines were, and this, that, the other, that is going to be fully accurate the next time. Well, generally speaking, it probably will. Mm-hmm. There will be exceptions to the rule. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, let's take the one at the top of the house you just mentioned. Psychometric profiling in general of somebody is incredibly useful. I mean, there's no two ways about it. They give us shortcuts, and if we've done it well and go beyond a tacit profile and we dig in a bit deeper and we understand them, being around them, is brilliant. However, on any given day, environmental, psychological factors can impact how we process information and we respond or don't respond. And I think that's why the rule of thumb is just always front load the conversation with, what may be considered chit chat. Hey, how you doing? Whatever, because you're going to get a bit of a read out there, and it's going to help you think, oh gosh, things are a little bit off today. And then you take it from there. So I think always just front load, even if it's a minute, that's fine. That minute will have a disproportionate impact on the quality of your conversation. And particularly if you're eliciting further information, you can get more stuff. And I think the other thing on it as well is that, you know, that phrase at the heart of the matter are the matters of the heart. And, you know, if you want to get to the heart of something, we've got to understand, so if you're influencing, persuading, building rapport, just genuinely good relationships with people, actually just listening, and also realizing that there's stuff deep down inside. If you want to be a good elicitor and leverage that, which I'm sure we're going to cover in a bit, yeah, getting to the heart, getting to the values, what somebody's important for, somebody's key. And finally, this mind-body connection on, you know, pain in the neck or pain in the back. The growing body of evidence is that actually that's really significant, and something that we probably in our reductionist world have probably not paid so much attention to. But if we go over to Chinese medicine and all those other medical approaches from around the world, actually there's really precious stuff in there that we'd be good to pay attention to, I think.
Cool. So this lesson kind of seemed like it's shooting off in one direction then to another, but it will all tie together again, I assure you, viewers and listeners. Some of these are bits that were missing from previous lessons, some of which for good reason, to get you used to the other stuff first. But like anything, it all interconnects. So next on my list, as it were, is to mention power words. Now, there's a few contexts to this, and in the members area, people will find various visual images with lists of example power words that are used in advertising because they elicit emotion immediately and attract attention. The most powerful words, for example, being free and sex. I'll put them together. Free sex. Probably not relevant for selling baked beans, but the point is there are words that have certain emotions already anchored to them, or socially, environmentally, culturally linked to them, that when people hear these words, it will tend to trigger. If certain words can trigger excitement, certain words can trigger anger, certain words can trigger lust, certain words can trigger curiosity and wanting to know more, which would obviously be one of the keys in advertising because of the old saying AIDA: attention, interest, desire, action. Capture their attention. Free sex. Create more interest. Join us on Thursday nights at XYZ Club, and you know it's singles night, and whoa, these people have said it's the easiest place in town to get laid. So never mind that they've stopped for free sex. Relevant, interest, desire. Well, that's building up already, but then we can go, you know, here's some quotes, people saying, aha, you know, I've never had so much adult fun. Action, you've got a limited spaces available, or you've got to reserve your ticket now. It's pushing them into it there and there. But there's other context for power words. Words have power as well. So there's words that are considered power words in advertising, in NLP, because of the emotions that are already connected to them. And there's grids and images in the members area giving you examples of words that will elicit certain emotions, or are more likely to. Obviously, those emotions that you will elicit by using those words in the right way can be amplified or dissipated through an awareness of how you deliver them as well. Because excitement words delivered with more excitement, wow, this is amazing, is going to have more of an impact than, wow, this is amazing. Now, the word amazing is still going to be like, what's amazing about it? But it's going to be kind of teetered out a bit by the voice tone being, wow, this is amazing. So by aligning the use of the word with the use of your own voice tones and body language, because excitement might be that you become animated. Wow, you know, guys, this is wow amazing. This is just,
yeah.
As opposed to, wow, guys, this is wow amazing. Yeah, it's completely different. So the words do have power. But that can be amplified even more through your body language, your voice tones, your internal script that we talked about in a previous thing. And then, of course, there is also the context of words having power in the structure of them, or the use of them, or such like. And a few examples of that, before I hand over to Paul, are, I often get asked, what's the quickest way to hypnotize somebody?
Okay.
Now, in my Elite Hypnosis Bootcamp, people look at ultimatehypnosiscourse.com there to become a fully certified clinical hypnotherapist. But I teach numerous of these things they call instant hypnotic inductions or rapid hypnotic inductions, and I also teach slower ones. And there's a reason for this, because even when I use a rapid hypnotic induction in therapy, once I've apparently got them hypnotized, and if you watch previous lessons, you know why I'm going apparently, because it's just a perceptual thing, I will then take them through what other people would then perceive to be a deepening of the trance state process, but in truth would be a longer induction. Deepener, longer induction, call it what you will. And that will generally always be a kind of progressive muscular relaxation type, tense your muscles, release them, as well as imagining those muscles releasing process, akin to that with Dr. Edmund Jacobson. A mental block here. Dr. Edmund Jacobson published in his book You Must Relax many decades ago. And it's the core of most meditative approaches. It genuinely causes physical release, which ties in with the psychological elements and all the stuff we talked about in the bonus video in lesson 1. To get into that, I would say, transitional sleep state, that state of theta, that state of trance, that state that's the mid-zone of the parasympathetic nervous system if you're doing it in a relaxed manner, or could be the mid-zone of the sympathetic nervous system if you do it in a kind of excited, pushing them into the zone of like sports in the zoneness. But we talked about those things. Now, there is a way to get to that, not necessarily immediately into that until you've gone through the process and anchored them into getting used to go to it on a keyword, which is NLP anchoring, which we have talked about a bit and no doubt will again. But ultimately, that is a state of going inwards into themselves. This transitional going inwards, as opposed to full alertness and consciousness being an awareness of what's going on outside and being full. So it's about going inwards. And the quickest way of doing that with people who are cooperative or compliant is, as we've discussed before, to start telling them a story.
Yeah.
Literally, once upon a time, which immediately signifies that there's a story to come, can cause people to fixate their attention on one thing, listening, looking at you. Fixation of attention on one thing to the exclusion of other things can help lead to the point of critical faculty, analytical area, executive function bypass, which arguably therefore then means you direct. Incommunicado, en rapport, call it what you will, in trance, whatever, with the unconscious, subconscious mind, the neck-top computer. So once upon a time, it's the storytelling example. In negotiations, in sales, if you want people that kind of add emotion to things and feel it more, because the mind doesn't know the difference between the unconscious, between that that's imagined and that which is real, hence MLQA, it's law of reversed effort, and the fact that when the imagination and the human will are in conflict, the imagination will always win. So just saying to them, yeah, you know what, if you just take a few moments, just imagine, and then fill in what it is you want them to think about. But by putting the words, just imagine, can lead them to start to think of it more inwardly, which as they go inwards, that arguably is going into closer towards theta state, transitional sleep, call it what you will, but closer to that critical faculty bypass. And if you want to elaborate on that further, add the few other words of what would it be like. So it can be, just imagine, what would it be like when X, Y, Z, or imagine, and what would it be like if you were to do this instead of doing that? Or imagine, what would it be like? Hopefully I'm getting across both with facial expressions and body language and voice tone here, that because I'm asking this question, what would it be like? I want to present it in a manner where I seem genuinely interested and curious about, just imagine, what would it be like if you were to do this instead of doing that? What would that be like for you? And so hopefully the point I'm making here is the words have power, but you can add power to them through your voice tones, looking as though you're consistent, congruent, I suppose NLP would call it, so that it's not picked up as this person's trying to use some persuasion tactic on me, or tactic to get me to talk more, or whatever. It comes across, hopefully, the majority of the time as you're genuinely interested, and therefore the person feels valued in the way we talked about in the bonus video with lesson 1. So all those other things fit in. So yeah, imagine is a powerful one to get them arguably to go inward directly. Once upon a time, and it sounds corny, but you can say to them, you know what, I know you like me are probably right now a bit kind of confused or unsure as to whether to make this decision and go this way with the decisions for the company, or whether to go this way with the decisions for the company. And I've got to be honest with you, right now, you, like me, are probably, I may as well flip a coin on this. And we both know that's not a good idea. So, I mean, I do remember somebody telling me once, and it was a bit like they were going to start telling me a story. It was almost like, once upon a time. Right. Now it seems a bit sad. I'm going almost like once upon a time. However, nonetheless, it will still press the button to some degree of the person's inner child state that we spoke about, the child archetype, the child consciousness. There's all different models for this, but we all have it built within us, and will then make them more attentive. But in a business environment, the example I've just given, rewind it because I don't want to act it out again, but by putting a bit of sarcasm in, yeah, it was almost like once upon a time. I'm kind of saying, without saying it, don't worry if you think that this sounds a bit fucking sad and cheesy. I think that too, which will help reduce resistance, help, therefore, access to the childlike kind of ego state to come out and enjoy the context of a story. But lo and behold, because there's less critical and analytical stuff going on, it means you're more likely to get your well-formed outcome that you've already planned to feed in through that parable or metaphor or hero villain story. Go back to the storytelling lesson and resources. So yeah, my major point there be imagine. It can be as simple as saying imagine. Or what would it be like? You know, and it's daft, but once upon a time. But also using your body language to make certain things seem more serious, certain things more credible, or to make it seem like you're not taking something too seriously sometimes, so that the person doesn't have to put up resistance, because it's like, yeah, even you're not trying to put it across. But by so, that in itself, which isn't what they expect, means that it's more likely to be taken on board. Before I go into other power words, because there was actually a lot more there than I expected just off the words imagine and the phrase what would it be like and once upon a time. Let's cover them and your thoughts on them ones before we go on to the other ones.
I mean, you're using, I'm sure you do, because you're good at this stuff. You're using a technique also called force teaming, when we say, hey, you know, I don't know if you felt like this, but I have, and, you know, we're on this together. And force teaming is very powerful because it reduces resistance. Yeah, it's, oh, we're on the same team here, and it gives people an excuse to feel vulnerable without being exposed as well, which is really, it's very powerful technique. It's so powerful. It's often used by nefarious actors who are going to attack people. So you read any Gavin de Becker stuff, you read research on inside threats and corporate espionage, because the human element is always the weakest element in any security system. It's not the computer, it's the human being. And force teaming, everybody likes to feel part of something bigger than themselves. It's that herd mentality, it's that connection. So these power words combined with your approach that you're using here around force teaming is super powerful. And it's as simple as, before you go into the setting, if people are wanting to deploy this kind of stuff for ethical purposes, of course, is to think about, actually, how can I be congruent NLP language? What's the outcome I want? What's my positive intention and regard for the other person? How can I identify an opportunity where we could be teamed up for something? And that could be entirely positive as well. And then you amplify that through the power words. And there's all sorts of stuff that I think might be worth just throwing in as we carry on this lesson, Jonathan, around amplifiers, cultural amplifiers as well, and how we can amplify trust by understanding broad cultural norms. And there's very good research by anthropologists and sociologists on the different ways that different parts of the world tend to respond in terms of how you build trust and how you reduce trust as well, how you basically how you blow it. Because ultimately what we want to do is we need to get past the resistance threshold, so that then we can start to do these things, which are in each culture, to BL, NLP or whatever, they've been modeled in effect of, look, they've looked at different cultures and how does effective communication relationship happen? Oh, it operates by these norms. Right, let's break that down. This is the playbook. Follow the recipe, add your personality, be aware, and then you'll see the results.
Yeah, I made a note of that. We will come back to that. So specifically, before I move on to the other example power words, I mean, shitloads of them, and there's loads in the members area that people can have a look at for examples and whatnot. But that first thing, let's go back. I don't know what your thoughts on the getting people to go inwards, which is critical faculty bypass, and the fact that, as I just alluded to, it can be as simple as, imagine, just imagine, what would it be like for you if X, Y, Z, or what would it feel like for you if X, Y, Z? Is this something you've used in your? I mean, because I'm talking therapeutically. Sales.
So the other way. So you've got can you imagine what it would be like? So people go inside, because when somebody goes inside, they are then going to start to dig stuff out and start to talk generally, because remember, we want to use emotion, which is energy, emotion. We want to keep somebody moving along a line. When somebody's static, if they're stuck at the place we don't want to be, it's not useful. So we need to keep them moving. The other thing that we find useful, not just with imagine what it would be like, is because sometimes people can be a bit defensive towards that and say, what are you doing? This is a high stakes situation. I'm not imagining anything. That can sometimes happen. The other thing that we can do, if we're having a conversation with somebody in a club, in a bar, in a restaurant, a meeting place, wherever we're at, and we're trying to get more conversation going, rather than them imagining something for themselves, we can third party it, which reduces resistance. And then get people to say, do you know, when you've had conversations with X, Y, and Z, whoever they were, and you've seen great results, just talk me through that. I'm really interested to understand. So what it's doing is it's getting them into a position where they're talking about something that happened over there. So it's a bit safer than me going inside now, but also it's getting them into a positive framework because they're talking through something that worked, something that's successful. And then, of course, the secondary gain for us as people who are talking is we're getting to hear their keywords and phrases around success, their rules for success, the criteria that they're using for success, whether they talk in story form or structure. So even in getting somebody to talk about something that worked in the past that they feel good about, they're giving us loads of information that we can use to help build stronger ties of relationship and or make an ask of that person going ahead for them to give us a piece of information, do a particular task, say yes to a product, or in my case, continue with the relationship. So we bring it to a place of fulfillment, which is hopefully mutually beneficial to everybody, or at least for me. Anyway.
Excellent. Next one. Because these ones, one word at a time. We've got about half a dozen examples here. But the word "and."
Yeah.
The fact that it can link two concepts.
Yeah.
And ironically, I'm using the word "and" there, but and the fact that those two concepts, if looked at fully rationally in the light of day, may not necessarily be harmonious, may not necessarily have any relevant context together, but there can be, when done purposely, a false logic in that this thing here is already kind of an agreed fact, a generally accepted fact. Everyone's agreeable to it and positive about it. And that if it's put across as so, XYZ here is working wonderfully, which means that, this is the brain frame we've got, which means that can sometimes be used instead of "and," but actually that's next. So forget that, which means that. And so this is working wonderfully positively, and this could do as well. Or it's great that you're planning on doing X, Y, Z. And I reckon that'd be a great opportunity as well to do. But because it's kind of making the floor, linking together, it's kind of moving that feelings, energies, emotions around that. That's the accepted fact. Thought, feeling, emotion, perception, whatever, and moving it in the direction of that you want to take them to. That's the way I'm initially going to explain it. I mean, there's loads of other ways as well, but yeah, the word "and."
Oh, you're a canny operator, Jonathan. Yeah, because I mean, basically what's happening when we're using this kind of stuff, we don't want people to slow down so much. Say if there's a bit of suspicion, we don't want people to slow down so much that they're turning on their critical faculty so high now that they're questioning every single phrase and word that's coming out. So using "and," we're chaining ideas together. Remember, we want people to move along a line. I don't want them to stop in some cul-de-sac and say, well, I don't know, and then argue the toss about something. I'm done. I'm lost. You know, I want them to move. And it's chaining, and going at pace as well. So often when we're doing this, to your point earlier on about the congruency of body language and pace and speed and intonation, we want to "and this and that and the other, and we can use our hand to roll it as well. And all those things are stacking things in our favor. And it's happening all the time in good, honest, nice conversation. Oh, and I did this and the other. And to be honest with you, when I'm on the receiving end of it, and you'll probably begin experiencing now, I've phased out so much information that's coming towards me. I'm like, yeah. Oh, yeah. And of course, people are saying yes, and they're congruent, and it's the nice dopamine and serotonin feels lovely. And it's just moving quickly. And I mean, when I've watched different mentalists on TV, they're doing this kind of stuff because they're getting people to move quickly so that they gain compliance and all that kind of jazz for the stage show. But it's no different in regular conversation, and you can deploy it very effectively.
It's just that obviously until maybe that which is obvious when you look at it as we're looking at it isn't generally obvious. We take it for granted. People can. So no apologies for a lot of the stuff that we share being, well, that's obvious. But the thing is, was it that obvious till you sat back and went, I need to look at what's going on here?
That's clearly right. For example, we can switch out "and" for "but." And as soon as we introduce but, it's like a full stop. But is like a full stop. Anything that's before it, in our culture at least, it's like, oh. So say, for example, somebody's coming in for a performance management review, if people are in business or watching this. Oh, Paul, Jonathan, thanks for making the time to come and see me today. I'm going to talk about your last quarter's results. And there are a few other things that I want to bring up as well. That's cool. Thank you, Jonathan, for coming in today. I want to talk about your last quarter's results, but I want to talk to you about something else. Just changing the word and but immediately we're thinking, now I'm going to get told off. And it's like, well, maybe I will, but it's going quite quick. And yeah, so we've got the flow. It's not going to stop all of it, but it certainly stacks things in your favor. Yet is another great phrase as well, and because is another great phrase to change things and move things along.
We'll come to because in a minute, but yeah, yet. But going to but B-U-T. I'm just going because that was next on the list. So hey, which is clever because he's not seen the list.
No, but I mean,
as you've just alluded to, using the word but tends to make people suddenly think, oh, it puts a focus on whatever's about to follow, but
yeah,
because it does tend to imply, yeah, I think this is brilliant. I really enjoyed the show overall, but and it's like, what?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was a great meal. I really enjoyed the steak, but tends to, it can put people's backs up in negotiation. Yeah, I agree with that, but what? However, knowing that, having an awareness of that, can also mean that you can purposely use but to momentarily interrupt the person's relaxed pattern to make them get their back up momentarily, but they're not going to necessarily reveal that. But inwardly, they're thinking, what's coming here? To then give them an immediate sense of relief, because instead of following the word but with, as they would expect, a criticism or a negative or an extra demand, which would normally be the case, you actually maybe go, so you've been asked about the meal, you go, yeah, I thought it was a fantastic steak, the wine was spot on, but I've got to say, the service is here. It's way beyond what I expected. It's fantastic. So it can make them think, what the hell? And then unexpectedly, you come back not with a criticism or a negative or a negation. You come back with another positive that's actually then amplified way beyond anything they would have expected. And in that moment of almost relief within them, they're going to love the fact that it was something positive as well. But arguably, if you had prior to the but, so you might include some negatives in there and get the honest negatives in, or things, so they will go in, but the but will make it seem like there's something worse to come. But then there's that massive relief because it's something really good.
Yeah.
Rewind rather than be able to give the example again. It can help, but the emphasis on what follows the but, which in this example is made to be positive and happy and makes them feel good, and therefore help to kind of almost delete and make them almost forget and leave behind what was said before in a manner that it's still there, so you can never be accused in the future of not having said it or accused of any dishonesty because you had generally brought it out in the open, but so that you reduce the emotional intensity of it as well. I hope that makes sense because I'm kind of...
Yeah, it does. I mean, I often think that but's like a magnifying glass. That's the best way to remember. It's a magnifying glass. What it does is it focuses attention on that particular thing. Before and after, it just magnifies it. So you've got to deploy it carefully because it can magnify the negative or magnify the positive. It's a magnification tool. The other word that's closely associated to but, and it's a more polite version of but, is however. And sometimes people will use however as a well-dressed butt. There's an image for you right there, a well-dressed butt. So, but magnifier, a polite version people will often use. People like myself, Jonathan, of course, I may use however. and it has the same effect. It's not as strong. But it's a polite, probably a softer or more polite way of using the intention of but's magnifying glass. That's all you need to remember.
Cool. Next, kind of already covered this, but the phrase "which means that" it's a great way to link something that's proven and true or believable with something that may not be quite as tangible or believable, but because they're linked together rapidly, it can often bypass critical analysis. So, you know, wow, you know what? It's fantastic that in the past month, your sales figures have just like bloody shot through the roof. What did you say? 35% more than last month, you know, which means that next month, you've clearly got the possibility to go way higher. Well, the truth is that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah.
Is it? Because there might be limits, there might be other things. But it seems logical that because this occurred, this is possible. That's one example.
Yeah, and you have to be, I mean, my caution. So there's some contexts I work in where people are very, they're analysts. And by very nature, they're very analytical. And therefore, because of that analytical mind, are generally working with models or heuristic shortcuts that whenever data comes in, they're trying to think of the counter or the contrary all the time. So throwing out it's this, so it's that, and chaining things sometimes can create irritation in the recipient because they're uber logical and questioning the assumption behind something all the time. Eventually people will break down and yield to things, but we have to elicit from our target, from our audience, what is the best way to communicate with them. And it might not be because you got 35% last month, they're therefore 30, because somebody might say, well, there are environmental and market factors, there's headroom factors, there's this, that. And actually you can get all that out in the elicitation phase, the conversational phase, because if you want to be really snazzy about it, you can ego suspend and put a slight error in the conversation to see if somebody bites and says, actually, no, you didn't get that quite right, Paul. It means this. If I start to hear somebody correcting me in the early stages of conversation, then I know that certain of these phrases and techniques are actually not going to be very useful for me. I might have to use something else, but that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, and if people actually pay attention to previous lessons about calibration, listening to what people say, the ways, then there is context and common sense also got to come into this. Next on the list, the word "you." Prefixing something with "you" is immediately going to get their attention. And depending on whether it's like, you know, could be the difference between, hey, you know what, which could be like calm, relaxed, friendly, or you really need to do something about this. It could be almost the finger of blame, you. But the word "you" itself is an attention. It will put more focus on what is about to follow it.
Yeah. And like in the same way that but's a magnifying glass, you as a stick, you know, you poke at the point that you want to connect them to, you will find that, oh yeah, I will. And it's sharp, it's to the heart. And again, it's like when using open and closed questions, you know, an open question starts with why can feel a little bit interrogative. So we choose to use you at real opportune points where we want to create an exclamation mark. Hey, you! Ooh, exclamation mark. It's about you. And what we connect somebody to at that point is really important. So if you connect them to something that lifts the ego, creates greater comfort, reduces friction, that's super helpful in moving people along the line rather than getting them stuck in the cul-de-sac. So we use you to move them along.
Actually, this I should have mentioned this earlier. This is another way of getting people to kind of go inward rapidly, to some degree, but also to help the critical faculty bypass, and that's the word remember.
Yeah.
Because with most people, there's always exceptions to every rule. Okay, remember that everyone. But the word remember, before you then bring something up that you've either found out through research or through memory of, they said it earlier in the conversation or a previous meeting, or that you've seen them talk about on social media or whatever. So you know there's a truth and reality. You're not asking them to remember something that has no basis in fact. With the voice tone, so I mean, obviously, like anything, voice tone can alter it. It could be, hey, you remember that you said X, Y, Z. Well, that's accusatory. That's implying they fucked up in some way, or that they've contradicted themselves. Whereas a more friendly, open, pushing them into the state of feeling good about it type example could be, hey, you know what? Remember, what was it? I mean, but by acting, which I'll do in a minute, I'll just prefix that. Sometimes by acting as though you're having to think inwardly to remember something, in itself, it becomes almost a non-verbal through that acting suggestion for them to do the same thing, thus pushing themselves inwardly more rapidly. So the example, and yes, I am purposely acting in this kind of thing I would do, would be, you know what, remember that, oh, hang on a minute. The restaurant, not last time, the time before, it was the French, was it the French? Yeah, let them fill in the blank. Well, remember when we were there, you said, and this is way more playful and friendly, but if it was relevant, maybe drawing them back to that point of something they've said that puts an entire different focus or frame or context on what's currently being discussed there and then, that is more aligned with where you want things to go in terms of the way they're thinking, feeling, perceiving things. And you could even add into that something that Paul's mentioned a couple of times, that when I do that memory play bit, was it that not the last restaurant we're in, the time before that, was it the French? And you know full well it wasn't the French. That was maybe 3 times ago. So that they will have to go inwards to start to remind and go, no, it was that Armenian steak place or whatever. But that in itself, by them to access the memory, helps them push back or climb into or go inwards into those states of mind, body, and feeling that you want to, some might argue, anchor or elicit there and then to attach and associate to whatever this concept, negotiation, or whatever is that's going on.
Yeah. And it's the intentionality as well. So, in regular conversation, this is happening naturally, and we may do this without realizing it, or we may not. But when it comes to, say, you've got a specific task, or you're selling, or this, that, and the other, and you want to get more information, which is sort of the other stuff I'm involved with, the intentionality is really important, because you're thinking through, okay, then I want to get people to remember something, but I need to attach that to an outcome. So I want somebody to remember something so I can get more information, arguably. So if we get them to, do you remember when, or, doing your playful thing, oh, is it the restaurant, whatever it is, and they start saying, no, it was that one. Oh, yeah, it was that one. Or they go through a list of different restaurants that you've not even been to with them, and they're just listing places to go to.
And you go, no,
not that. But now I know the places you go. Okay, so and then the next stage is, I can say, so so what do you think about, more, it's not a very finessed version. So, oh, that's interesting. So what did you think about it? So now I've got them to go inside to remember, may have played with some stuff where they're listing different restaurants, and they say, so what do you remember about that time? Wasn't it that blah, 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 blah? And now they're giving me even more data about the time we spent in the restaurant, or a time that they spend in restaurants. And it gives us so much stuff. I mean, for those who want to get really sophisticated about this, and you've got to have your wits about you and really plan it out in your mind, is actually listening to the qualities of how somebody describes what they remember. So this goes back to the VACOG stuff. Are they describing it visually? Are they auditory? tactile, kinesthetic, tactile. So now we know that when they're accessing memories about that particular thing, they've associated visual things with it, etc. Yeah, we can get super sophisticated, but you can see how these simple power words and these phrases and getting people to go inside can give us so much amazing information that we can use to serve whatever purpose or cause we're out to serve.
Indeed.
Indeed.
I'm not going to the next one on the list. I'm leaving till last because there's only 3 more on my example list. There's many more power words, and as I say, there's examples of them and how to use them in advertising or for excitement or whatever in the members area. But after the last 3 examples, that hopefully will then get people thinking and looking at the power and impact and meaning and already associated conditioned responses that people generally have to words, both when they're said in an accusatory or an angry fashion, they can have one meaning, but when they're said in a more friendly, they can have a different meaning as well. And the delivery, body language, remember, it's the whole. But we talked about the word you before. The word we. You know, what I think we need to do, I reckon that if we were both to put a bit more energy into this, then I reckon that we could both really corner the market. It's giving that person a sense that they're really involved, they're part of it. Yeah.
So we, in statement analysis, forensic statement analysis, we're going to look at some of this actually as we go ahead about how to read text, email for insights into behavioral proclivities and withholding information. So when you get trained in statement analysis, we is always about, it's partnership language. That's what you're saying. It's partnership language. We're going to do something. It's partnership. It surfaces very interestingly in, so let me tell you a story. I was on the DLR, the Docklands Light Railway, for those people who aren't familiar. This was years ago when I was being trained, and I had a file of documents, and they were basically murder statements, attack statements, all this kind of stuff. And I was having to code to learn. I'd submit it to my assessor, and they would come back saying, you need to tighten up on this, blah, 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 whatever, and look at this. But when it came to we would sort of, maybe I highlighted it in purple because it was quite nice, purple friendly color. So, and actually going through, you go through a statement, and particularly with, let's give you a practical example. One of the statements I was going through was to do with a robbery in a shop, and people thought it was an inside job. So when the person was writing the statement, this was in the US, I was doing some stuff there. When the person was writing the statement, they were talking about the assailant came in, blah, 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 and we did, da, 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 I emptied the safe, I did this, they forced me to do that, and we, da, da, da. And we was coming up in really obtuse and obscure places, because we is almost, in the English language in particular, a universal descriptor of partnership. And at those points in the statement, they should not have been in partnership. They should have been, if they had a gun to my head, or they'd bagged me and stuck me in a corner. But it wasn't
that
we were
immediately says to me, did it turn out this individual was in on it?
They 100% were. And it's amazing how our language slips. It betrays us. So these power words, they're powerful because they are real. That's what happens. So when we start to say we're creating this partnership, this teaming, and it even comes out and betrays us when we're trying to deceive. And so we look for we in statements and in situations. And for those of us on the call who are on the course who are in business, etc., if you're in business and people are using we when you're asking them questions around, did you do this, did you do that, did this happen? So if they're in fraud, if you're in therapy and you're trying, somebody's telling you their story, we will tell you where there may be an unhealthy kind of partnership there, and that you might need to unpack it and deal with all the associated emotions and the associations and disassociations that may take place. Look out for we, really powerful word, and fun as well.
obviously the flip side of that would be I, individuality.
Yeah.
So if they were talking generally about there's a whole bunch of us, we did this, we did that, and then someone was to ask them a question to give more detail, and randomly during it, they suddenly said, yeah, and I did. They may not even consciously realize they've slipped into I, identifying which bit they're more responsible for themselves rather than the.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And there is, let's cover this properly in detail, but another time, I think. But the use of the personal pronoun I, when it comes to statement analysis, when it comes to elicitation, when it comes to understanding how close or far away somebody is from the subject to the object, how much ownership they do or don't take, where it drops out, how to spot that in written text, how to listen to it back in audio. I'll give you, it is really, really well researched, and it's 101. It's the top of the list when it comes to statement analysis. I remember I was selling into a law firm, one of the biggest law firms in the world, actually, and looking at their sort of training and this, that, and the other. And the point person was interested, but a bit more kind of like resistant to, we can help you do A, B, and C, whatever it was. And then they were talking, and they were talking about their history and how much experience they had. They were really doing the credibility. Oh, look who I am, going through a whole list of different things. And I had my spidey senses on, and I thought, right, they weren't giving much away in body language, so I'm going to switch to the linguistic channel, the listening for the word and the order. I was just listening. And I noticed that in their history, in their telling of their story, there was no personal pronoun I around a particular portion. And it was going through quickly. And I did this and I did this, and I worked with here and I worked there and I worked there. When working at this place, this happened. Then I worked there. And it was when working at this place, this happened. That bit there was no pronoun I around that bit in the conversation. And I said, so let me show you how powerful this stuff is in negotiations. If I was to ask you any question about an area that I think is sensitive, where you're withholding information, it is there in your career history. And they were like, how the bleep, 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 bleep in hell did you know that? I said, because you told me. Because your linguistic markers changed. And all the research by Dr. James Pennebaker and everybody else on the use of pronouns indicates around 80%, not 100%, 80%, that there's an area of sensitivity. So how would you like to know how to do that and lots more in your negotiations to increase your success rate, shorten your pipeline, and have better effectivity with your customers? Of course, I said yes. It was easy.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
nice.
Good.
So yeah, two final words in these examples. Now, which in itself implies an immediacy, that it must be done now, or it's happening in the moment, in the present, which if people's minds have been drifting off elsewhere, or the conversation going not in the direction you wanted and you want to draw it back somewhere else, could be useful just to throw in, now. And then obviously follow it with, it could be just totally slight pause as well, but then off on something else entirely. Just literally wait for opportunity to butt in from whatever they're saying, and then go nod as low, yes, I've taken on board what you said, and then now, and into where you wanted it to go back to. That's just one example, but now it's immediacy.
Yeah, and it's an exclamation mark, isn't it? And actually, it could be quite shocking for people. Now, it snaps them out of wherever their train of thought is. It's almost like a new chapter of the book. Okay, now we've done that. Now let's look at this, and we can, and you can bracket what you've previously said if that's important. But you're thinking, oh gosh, we're spending too much time there. We're getting into a cul-de-sac here. We can, we're in the conversation now. I know we're discussing this. let's actually just park that. We will be coming back to that. Now let's look at, and then woo, and because people want to feel safe, so they might not feel that they finished processing that previous bit of information, but you know that you need to keep them moving because it's slowing down so much. They're going to be in the cul-de-sac, and we need to get them moving out of there. So we need to bracket that and say, it's okay, we've not forgotten that. Let's park it. Now let's look at this. And you can put arbitrary time around it as well. Now, because, which I suppose we're going to get to, because we have, you know, only X amount of minutes left. So, and I know your time is precious, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Then we've bracketed, framed, segued, used because, and then we're off to the races again, hopefully. Now.
Cool. And yes, the last example on the list is the word because,
no,
which can be... It genuinely is. It is. It's not. I'm not just saying that. It's,
I know.
Oh, hang on. People might not be able to see that because of that, but there we go. Because
yes, right. You're right, like a doctor, Jonathan. Oh no, you are a doctor.
Yes, take it to Boots. They'll make it up. But yeah, because for our American friends, Boots is a pharmacist in England, so it's the idea that doctors writing when doing prescriptions is scribbly. Mine is. As is most creative people's.
Oh,
apparently. Yeah, it justifies and gives reason, or at least that's the way it can be perceived. So, an example that I have been known to use on occasion, albeit there is a blatant lie here. There wasn't the first time I did it, I may add. I just found that, oh, that worked rather well. I'll use it again in the future. And the difference is now my grandma's dead. So there is a definite lie because, well, as you'll see in the example, but at the time I first used this, having learnt about the power of the word because years ago, she was alive and there was truth in it. And that was that I was doing some shopping and I'd gone to pick up a few bits for her that I was going to be dropping off for her. And I literally had like 3-4 items. It was definitely less than 10 items, but the 10 items or less checkout in the store was not open. We didn't have self-service areas back then because it's going back a number of years. And there were queues galore everywhere. But at the end of the tills, before you actually got to the point where you put your shopping on, they also had chocolate bars and other things. So there was a logical reason to be able to walk up to them, past the queue, and look as though you were getting something off there. And then once there, turn, directly get eye contact, look at previous lessons, the old bit with the eyes, smile, get their attention, and as you do, just kind of casually, and I was holding the basket here, but it's like, and I've just casually got my hand, I'm not going, look, I'm just casually, so that they're going to end up realizing that in this frame of what's in front of them, basket, only few items, whereas they've got a massive trolley of stuff. I just go, hey, is it all right if I just jump in front of you because I've got to get to visiting time with my grandma at the care home. She's asked me to pick these bits up for her. Would that be okay? Yes, to nod, yeah. And it kind of doesn't always work because there's some see you next Tuesdays in the world. But grandma works particularly well. Well, as long as you're not like 8, as long as you yourself using it are not 80, and it elicits that idea in them of how old must their grandparent be. It's got to be tangible and believable, obviously, as with all this stuff. But I'd say more than 90% of the time they go, oh yeah, you've only got 3 or 4 items in there. You jump in front of me. Yeah. And it's because of that, because used in the office. In fact, in the book I read years ago, I can't remember, but I think the example given there was you had to wait in turn to use the photocopier. And there were people doing loads of stuff. So somebody just went forward. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's in the power of persuasion. It just goes up and goes, is it right if I just jump on, interrupt you while you're doing that? Because I only need 3 copies of this. So yeah, the word because, throwing that back at you.
Oh, it's one of the most powerful. And it plays on a few things. It plays on the fact that our brains are meaning-making machines, and they like to meaning-making lumps of meat. Wonderful that they are, but they want the shortest possible route to the end. And because seems to in the English speaking languages of the English speaking nations of the world seems to do it. It's really powerful. Gives people illusionary meaning to say yes, reduces resistance. We burn less carbohydrate when we're processing. Oh yeah, because is good. And also when we think about because, going back to a previous lesson where we were talking about symbols and memes and how we can use imagery, that's basically, well, that's one of the things that's happening when we use a meme. We are using a picture, and then because of that, whatever the words are, and it's the power of because should not be underestimated. I remember stacking because with some other techniques. I was in another country. I was wanting to get out. I had got everything sorted except booking the extra luggage on board. And I'm thinking, oh no, I'm gonna have to pay an absolute premium. So I went up to the desk. It was really busy. I didn't have the extra cash. I had a small part of the cash on me. I won't tell you the story about what happened to my cards, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I wanted to get out. I needed my stuff with me. Bang, bang, bang. I went up. I thought, I've got to run this. So I went up to the checkout, went to check-in, handed my bags over. They said, you haven't got it. I had my wallet with me with a card and some other coins and bits and pieces, but not my credit. Anyway, so I thought, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I need to do this because, and as I said, because I opened my wallet and spilled everything on the desk, touched the person's hand. In other words, got them so overloaded, cognitive overload, that they were now open to suggestion. And I said, I'm sure you can be of help because I got to do this. And you strike me as somebody who's really kind and who helps people like me. Oh, fool that I am, ego suspension, typical bloke, playing on the narrative, that etc. Oh, sir, no, it's okay. You can have it for this price, which I knew was half the price, which was the money I had. We got through. I felt so bad about it because I am the good cop, you know that already, that I wrote to the airline afterwards and said I'd done this and I offered to pay the difference, which they wrote back and said, no, don't bother, but thank you very much. It was the funniest letter we've received for ages. Brilliant. Oh, I felt great about it, but I still felt bad about it. And yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. That cognitive overload, that sensory overload for immediate critical faculty bypass, it can also be termed sometimes as pattern interrupt in NLP.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So to give another example, which is probably more familiar to people, well, it could be familiar to people who've watched a stage hypnotist or watched a mentalist like Darren Brown, for example, on stage, go up to somebody and suddenly take the hand and put it in front of the face, and they're suddenly apparently out of it, that preconceived idea of a hypnotist, putting somebody to sleep, which we've talked about previously. But the idea of pattern interrupt with a handshake induction is that, in some countries, obviously this is not relevant because some countries is actually, it's not culturally acceptable to shake hands when you first meet.
Absolutely.
But majority, English, American, European, it's culturally acceptable and conditioned pattern of life and behavior, the norm, that if someone puts their hand out like that and goes hi, or just puts their hand out and kind of looks at you like, that you immediately recognize it as being they want to shake hands. So you put out your hand, they connect, and a handshake occurs. That is the normal pattern that is in the filing cabinet of the mind, the neck-top computer, that is triggered by the hand coming out like that, that naturally we do. So with hypnosis, pattern interrupt induction, I can go up to somebody, put my hand out, and they will naturally bring their hand towards me, expecting, their expectation is that we're going to connect, handshake, hi, nice to meet you, or something else said. Whereas instead, hand goes out, as they come towards me, I, rather than connecting like that, which is what they expect, go past their hand, grab their wrist, twist their hand round, and then, so it's in front of their face like that, and I start bringing it towards their face at quite a speed, but smoothly, so that all in one, it looks as though we're going to do that. That's what they think. That's what they're expecting. But what actually happens is, and if you look at your hand and it comes towards your head, just close your eyes down now, let your heavy head fall forward and relax. And it looks like they've gone to sleep. Well, no, they're just following the instructions without any resistance of, as your hand comes towards your face, close your eyes down, let your heavy head fall forward onto your chest, and then I throw that hand down into their lap, makes it feel loose, limp, ragdollified, and amplifies the idea of they're asleep when they're not. They're just got their eyes closed and are in that critical faculty, analytical area, executive function has been bypassed state that agrolary means they've been pushed into the theta transitional sleep, call it what you always spoke about before, just by taking what they expected and doing something unexpected that didn't match the pattern. So therefore it's interrupted the pattern, hence it's called pattern interrupt, or it can be called a shock induction. But your example there, pop the coin dropping out, that is also a interrupting the pattern.
Yeah, huge.
Although they didn't know what the pattern was. It was something unexpected, out of the norm.
Yeah, and I think for our viewers, not to underestimate the power of this stuff, actually. So I know this isn't about language, this bit, but we're using language when we're doing it. If you want to, you can have some innocent fun playing with this kind of thing. When it comes to pattern interrupts, physicality, etc. Certainly people who do penetration testing, which is looking at, it's not some sexy thing, Jonathan. It's people...
You had me, I was like, you saw me.
There's one of your power words, mate. And but yeah, certainly people who do penetration testing, which is working for companies to identify the weak spots in human security in a building. They're using all these techniques. And the thing that you can do with a physical pattern interrupt, if that's the phraseology we're going to use, is you appear confident. So you go with intent, and you do something to then create lots of distraction, use becausing and the assumption that you should be on the other side of the door. Do you know who? All that kind of, not egging it too much. You can try this, and you'll be surprised how far you get through a system. So I remember I was working in South Africa, and there's a beautiful resort out there, which is the quote unquote 6-star hotel. And I was with some guests, and we were traveling through. There was 4 of us in the wagon, and they said, "Oh, we'd really love to, have a steak at this place." And it's like, the steaks and meat in South Africa or anywhere are great. Why here? I don't know, but it was prestigious. But you needed to, you need to make a reservation weeks in advance, all that typical stuff. And I was like, "No, come, just pull up, and I'll get us in, or not, etc." And all I did was there was the guards there, but we were dressed quite nice, so we could walk past. We looked like we were part of the thing. So it's having the uniform on, the white coat syndrome for your therapists, your plaques on the walls, all that stuff. It all adds to the stuff. Walk in with purpose, pass those, go to reception, and really, really fast pattern interrupts. I slip open my wallet, in there's a fancy card with a director, blah, blah, blah. So there was the prestige symbols, I had an expensive watch on, all this kind of stuff. And I basically use a whole load of pattern interrupts, convincers, etc. And then use the phrase, would you be so kind as to, as well, which is adding stuff. And in the end, we're sitting in there having a steak. And all we're doing is we're using confidence with pattern interrupts, with some, accoutrements of success, whatever they were, etc. It's no different from people who are doing therapy. You're using all the same stuff. You're using the pattern, you got the stuff on the wall, you're dressed in a certain way, the office has got a particular look. You just transpose that into different settings, and you'll be surprised how far through you can get with a bit of confidence, a bit of ego suspension when you're being confident, a few pattern interrupts, a bit of language around because, would you be so kind? And if you want to have fun with this stuff, you can get into restaurants, you can do all sorts of things. And of course, some people will say no, but you'd be surprised how high the hit rate is. It's like remarkable, because we all want to help other people, but we just need a reason. That's all. You're giving somebody the reason to say yes. That's all.
We are going to talk more about these things now, because purely because yeah, it's fun and it's useful and it's a different way of looking at stuff. And in that regard, what suddenly occurred to me is, look, for those viewers and listeners, and I hope that includes you as well, that have been paying attention and listening, observing, because obviously some of this stuff, most of it you'll be able to learn through listening, but there is some of it you need to be watching the video versions as well, to see the examples of how body language can make the difference and whatnot, or spatial anchoring and this, that, the other. But then when you take a step back and look and consider, you'll start to see how it could be used in business or in dating to pick up the opposite sex, or in negotiations of contracts, or in, well, basically high stakes negotiations such as those that you yourself, obviously, Paul, have been involved in. The context you use it might be different, but the underlying principles are the same. And I think a great entertaining way of, and there is some element of theatrical license with this, in the sense of they have time constraints for films and for TV programs, so obviously it wouldn't be real time. There may be more of a conversation going on than what you'll see within the script of the program, as it were. But programs like The Hustle, the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation series Hustle, or the satellite series called Leverage, or there's another one called White Collar.
Yeah.
Series like that, where you've got professional, the storylines about professional con people, grifters as they would be called, doing short, which is short term, happens in real time within minutes or hours, cons, and also long cons that could take place over days, weeks, months, sometimes even years, if it's for massive amounts of money. And even though the storylines and the fiction, a lot of these are based on things that happened in real life, especially with Hustle and White Collar. They were developed from things that had genuinely happened. And you can see, albeit with that theatrical license, lots of the techniques that we're on about, whether it be body language, voice tones, eliciting emotions to make people feel a certain way or think a certain way, being used in a manner that's also entertaining. But when you realize that they're based in reality, that these scams and hustles have genuinely taken place in real life, it illustrates how adaptable, flexible, and powerful these things are. Hopefully when used with purely positive, honest, legal, and ethical intent, well, obviously. But yeah, just throwing that thought out there.
But I think to split things a little bit for our viewers as well and listeners, I just scribbled it down because it's something that I do naturally, but it's only because I trained myself to do it more and more and more. Is you think in different phases when you're going through a process. So say, for example, you're trying to get through a physical barrier. You're trying to reduce resistance, whether you're trying to get into a building, get somebody to say yes, whatever that is. And it's more transactional. We're looking to move at speed and create compliance. But that's not going to work in the same way. There's still elements of it that work when you're seeking now to build a long-term relationship with somebody. So we're using time and rapport and elicitation and etc. So for the quick compliance to get through the door, to reduce resistance, we're doing certain things there. But actually to build, we're not using these short-term bang, 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 bang. We're actually, as you know, those programs are probably classically showing you how to do this. You're now building in emotional connectivity, a sense of dependency, a sense of shared interest, more nuanced, etc. But the first is wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You're getting through the door. And that's really useful to understand the difference between the two as well. And So I would suggest, depending on what your outcome is and what you need to get through to get from A to B, you're going to start to deploy different techniques in order to do that. That's the same with sales. So the copy letter or the initial bang bit is going to be different than now you're through the door and you're explaining, because the explaining bit's probably more relational. The first bit is the hook, the compliance, the yes set, the whatever techniques we're using in order to get something to say, oh, I'm going to pay attention to that. So it's just important to differentiate between the two, and they are part of the whole story, but there's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, etc.
Again, these things cross-relate. There's people I'm sure are intelligent enough. Yes, another inbuilt idea. You must be intelligent because you're paying attention. But should be starting to see that these things also cross-relate and stack on stuff from previous lessons. Props, therefore, can be useful. An example I used to do, well, I was on the Big Breakfast, a British television show, quite a lot in the mid to late 90s here in England. And on one of the occasions, I got asked to stay behind afterwards and help out. They were doing rehearsals with a new presenter. So by the time I was ready to go, the main on-set security for when there was all the guests there for the live show had gone home. And I found myself in a situation where there was only the main security on the total outside that I'd have to go past. And I thought, sod it. And I just put my lanyard that I had for walking around backstage that said Big Breakfast, Planet 24 Productions, Channel 4, and all the logos on it into my pocket. And I thought I can always take it out and give it to security guy on the way out if need be. He didn't ask for it because it wasn't his job to. That always happened from the other. So I ended up with a Planet 24 backstage pass. That if anyone had seen one before, it would be totally convincing due to the fact that it was genuine. However, the fact is most people would never have seen one. So you could, in theory, I could have in theory, although it hadn't crossed my mind, made one up. Dead easy to take some images online, print one, laminate it, stick it in a thing, lanyard you can buy. But I had a confidence behind this because it was genuine. But the truth is, it could have just as easily been printed up by myself, a lanyard banged on, and used as a prop. And I went, and I'm not going to mention the club because I don't want to be, well,
careful,
probably under different ownership. Anyway, I went to a certain well-frequented by celebrities nightclub that would cost you a hell of a lot for either membership or for getting in for the night, even more if they let you in at all. And I just walked past the queue like I owned the joint, which obviously meant when I got to the front, the doorman was immediately on red alert of what the fuck are you doing here? And this is what I'm imagining was running through their head. But also looking at me just in a, I was dressed as smart, casually as the venue would allow.
Yeah.
I've done my research. But so that I wasn't going in trying to look like the celebrity that no one hadn't heard of. I was trying to go in looking like the television person who worked for a TV company who was having to dress to a certain level to be allowed in the venue, but clearly was transmitting that they were just a person who worked behind the scenes for a TV company. But I walked with confidence to the door, and when they went, whoa, you can't come in, because I was like, what? I was kind of looked at them, hey, you okay? And then turned to look at the desk where you have the person on the desk. And I was about to do the same. They go, you can't come in. And I just pulled the lanyard out, which was around my neck, but I pulled it from under cover of the jacket and went, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention Planet 24, the Big Breakfast, the breakfast show, yeah. We're last minute sorting out some filming locations for next week. And I've been sent here by the boss because your name's like really top of the list at the minute, but I mean, no problem. I can go elsewhere if it's an issue. Well, I've just succinctly told them why I'm there, which is unexpected. You could argue pattern interrupt. Giving them a high stakes value, something that could be beneficial to the venue. We could be featured on the Big Breakfast. Third party, my boss has sent me here.
Yeah.
You know, your name's right top of the list, but if, hey, I can go elsewhere if that's an issue. I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but thinking about it now, that's raising it in without saying it in so many words. Imagine if the venue owner was ever to find out you lost him the chance of having his club positively featured on TV for free. All these things were going on in the layers that I just sailed into the club. And not only did I sail in, but the person on the desk told the doorman to keep the queue happy and said they'd be back in a few minutes. They took me and the person I was with, who will remain nameless for now, directly to the bar and made it clear, get these people a drink on the house. They're just looking around with a view to using us on TV. And that just played on so many things, their ego, their emotions, their not wanting to fuck things up for the boss. The fact that I didn't seem totally hung up on, oh, hey, it's all right, I can go elsewhere, but my boss said you're top of the list at the minute. Type things.
Your pretext, you're using a pretext. So that's a classic in penetration testing, confidence stuff is pretexting, and also working on the fact of making it hard for somebody to say no. And you know, if you want to reduce somebody's resistance, is people don't like saying no too many times. They might say it once, but they are not going to like saying it more than once or twice. So the other thing to do is give somebody 2 or 3 options to say, you know, a couple of options to say no, and then ask them something else that you really want, and they're more likely to say yes because they're tired of saying no. And that's if somebody's looking for a pay rise or something like that, or a holiday. You know, say if you want 3 weeks off rather than 2 weeks off, and you know, you might say to the boss, you know, I wonder if I could have 6 weeks off because I've got this big thing, because well, no, I think that's just a little bit too much. Well, I'm sure we could squeeze it to 4 weeks, maybe, boss. Well, no, Paul, that's still a little bit too difficult. 4? Yeah, 4 or 3. Yeah, cool. And, you know, gradually people's resistance is down, and it's having the pretext all the time is, this is my story, this is my outcome, these are the props, you know, the lanyard, this is the thing that we're going to use in terms of going to make it hard for them to say no because it's reputational risk. Is their job really worth not letting somebody in for a drink? Well, no, it isn't. They're doing the quick calculations in their head. Well, may as well let you go through. And that's how pretexting and hustling works. Obviously, you're very good at it. Naughty.
I'm not sure. It's worked more times than not. I mean, the worst case scenario is they can say, hey, you're talking shy. Or the worst case scenario is that somebody from that production company is in that club at that moment. And they know that. That is actually the worst case scenario on it. But anyway, I won't waste time going into the night that occurred. But there you go. Yeah, so sales. We kind of segue into that a bit. Now, inside the members area, people will find a PDF with, there's many more than 9 different sales closing methods. There's hundreds that have been invented over the years. There's a PDF that outlines 9 sales closing methods and gives you examples of how the conversation might go and whatnot. And those 9 briefly, which I'm going to go through because they relate to what's in the members area. But as I say, there's tons more. And but number 1, and these could be used in the context of negotiations, but whatever, or for selling a product or a service or an idea or an outcome. You know, the first one is the assumptive clause. This is where you, as the salesperson or the person selling the idea, the outcome, I have kind of decided that you, Paul, are buying this car. The price isn't an issue. I'm not even going there. So I may you know, because I'd signpost along the way that there wasn't resistance on price. Logically, you don't try going for a close until you feel that you're in the zone. But the assumptive close will be something like, so you mentioned that you prefer this in purple. So if it's going to take about a week for the purple car to arrive, so would you like it delivered next Thursday, or would Friday suit you better? Total assumption that you are taking the car. That's one way of, it's like in NLP presuppositions, saying things in a manner as though it's already happened or it is definitely going to happen. So that's one way of closing a sale. So assumptive closes, I'll throw that to you, and then your thoughts, and then we'll go to the next one. We'll do it that way.
So the assumptive close, you have to have got through a lot of threshold points to get them there, because somebody might feel it's being done to them. But done at pace, it works an absolute treat, doesn't it? It's forced choice. You know what I'm saying? It's either this or this. So which one is it going to be effectively? And once maybe we could get into this, once you've elicited somebody's decision-making strategy, buying criteria, you know which preferable way to close on them. You know, so say for example, they're interested in reviews. You know, you can actually say, I assume you've looked at all the various reviews of this model, etc., and I assume you know the prices and the markups, and if you know a price to you is X, Y, and Z, and that you've already got them through loads of assumptions, because now you're running down their criteria of what they assume to be good or bad, and they're deciding ones, and you're just closing on them there. That works particularly well with a sophisticated assumptive close.
Cool. Number two, the question clause. So an example, numerous ways this could go, but an example might be, so Paul, if I was able, I'm not 100% sure yet if I can, I'm going to have to make a call, but if I was able to get you this car delivered by Friday next week, before you go on your European drive round trip, and I was able to get you in, it was purple you said you wanted, yeah? Excellent. And you know what, heck, if I was to throw in as well the leather seats upgrade that we talked about, and the windows thing, would you be ready to go ahead with that now then?
Yeah.
Or shall we go ahead with that right now? Type thing. It's asking them the question, but also providing them with this is what you said you wanted. If I provide it all, will you take it now? Type of thing, one way. And obviously they could come back and go, well, no, because there's this one other thing. Fine, you identify it, you deal with it, and then you go, so as long as we can do X, Y, Z with that you've just mentioned, would you take delivery on Thursday, and would you sign now?
Yeah, it works really well, doesn't it? And the fact is, even if they say no, because you've still got movement, they're not saying no full stop, they're saying no because. And once you've neutralized what the because is, then you go back to it, and you've already chucking in value as well, which makes it even more appetizing. Lovely little morsels.
Indeed.
Little morsel.
The now or never clause, which is it's Chialdini scarcity.
Yeah, it is.
You know, this sale ends tomorrow at midday. I'm sorry, I don't want to seem like I'm rushing you, but the fact is, if you go home, think about this, fine, but do that by all means. In fact, you know what? To be honest with you, I can see you've got some concerns. So, you know what? I'm going to encourage you. I'm just throwing in a pattern interrupt here as well. I'm expanding on this. This isn't what I was intending to do, but I want to give some colour to these examples. I'm actually going to encourage you to go home tonight, consider everything we've spoken about, go and check out the competitors, see for yourself that they're all charging X, Y, Z price. And I just want you to realise that the wise thing for you to do is to take action before midday tomorrow. But please, it's not down to me. I don't want to let you down, okay? It's my boss. He genuinely won't let me. So if you get here tomorrow at 12:05, I can't do it at this price. And I definitely won't be able to throw in the free leather seats and whatnot. So please do me a favor, okay? Either drop me an email or ring me in the morning and say, no, this isn't for you right now, and maybe we can connect, and when the time's right for you, we'll find something that fits what you need and want. Or if, as I've got a feeling you might do, you realise that you want to grab this right now, make sure you're here before midday, because it's the boss, it's not me, okay? Scarcity, but also there's a slight element of I wouldn't expect the salesman to tell me, actually, go away now. That can work one of two ways. Either they go away, think, and do get back before lunchtime, because you put a deadline on it, or they go away, think, contact, and go, maybe they will probably, because of the unexpectedness, contact you and go, actually, no, now's not the time, or tell you what their final objection is, giving you another opportunity to overcome it so you don't lose the sale that other salespeople may have done. Or they could push back and go, actually, no, I don't need to think about it anymore. I'll do it now. I'll do it now. Bugger going away.
Yeah, and that on high ticket items, people, it's amazing how many times people just say yes anyway with the the scarcity things, even on high ticket items, but really high ticket items like tens of thousands or whatever, people will generally not respond to the immediate right here, right now, but they will respond to a few days. And that's also the reason why in English legislation that you have a 14-day period now, because these persuasion techniques are so powerful that the most rational of us will fall for them, or will respond to them, not fall, will respond to them because of our wiring. So that's why they put in this 14-day period, or one of the reasons they put the 14-day period in. You can also, from my other world, you can also use this scarcity thing to actually test whether somebody is genuinely interested in an outcome. So say, for example, I'm bringing two parties together and they're both thinking that they're really important, that they are important. And, we throw some dates out, throw some times, we're working on some bits and pieces, and we've got some resistance and, well, I don't know this, that, and the other. Then we can use scarcity and say, look, by this date, if this isn't brought together, if you're not part of, if you don't want to be part of it, there are other people who will be bringing in instead of you as the voice into that particular group of people. So there's more than one intermediary. You're not the only person in the village. There are other people in the village that want to play as well. And that scarcity thing, because it then attacks their pride and says, oh no, I am really important, so I will move things around, give them that out. But it tests whether they're interested or not. And so you can use it in two different ways. So you can use it for the close, you can use it to test.
Excellent. And this is exactly why, viewers and listeners, we've got together, because Paul will give you other ways of looking at how these techniques can be used in different contexts and situations, which is the point. And we haven't got time. We'd be here for hours and 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 hours, hundreds of hours with you, to give you examples of every area of life with every technique. But hopefully by now you are realizing that genuinely, with a little bit of thought and common sense, these are the seeds, the underlying structure to everything and anything that you put them into. So number 4 on that 9 closing, get a new set of teeth examples list. If the puppy dog clause, which is which is talked about in as well in Hooked, that we mentioned, why things that are cute sell. It's giving them metaphorically the cute puppy dog and them liking it, and then just as they're clearly in that zone of loving the little puppy dog, going, I just need to take him or her back now. And they're like, oh, it's getting them in that emotional area. And it can literally be, because another way of using it, you can literally, if you've got faith in your product and you know that they're serious, but they're just teetering on the edge, if you know the product, and there are products out there that do sell themselves when they're being used, people go, yeah, I want that, is give it them to it's like the test drive with a car, but that's on a very low level. But it's to give them this. There's a bed company now in England that's so confident in their, I think it's that close to £1,000 for the mattresses, over $1,000 American money for a mattress, that they will give it you, have it delivered to your door, and give you a month's trial of it, and they will only charge you at the end of the month. That's then assuming they're that confident that their mattress is that comfortable and good, and this, that, the other, that many people are lazy, others may forget, and then hopefully, assuming their product's good, a large amount are going to go, you know what, I don't want this taking back in 2 days' time because I've got the most bloody amazing sleep, so I need to now cancel the collection in 2 days' time, which means automatically I'm going to get charged because they don't want the cute puppy taken away from them. They've grown emotionally and physically attached to it.
Yeah. So, okay, let's give another example that can be used for that. Once we've created stickability. So I was in a situation where I was bringing some people together for a conversation, and the key broker from one of the sides got that person in. They loved the fact that they were being taken seriously and they had access to people they couldn't get access to before. And the truth of the matter is that we needed something else from them, which we know that they didn't really want to give because, and it was nothing too tricky. It was just they couldn't be bothered because it meant they'd have to, do some asks of other people, all this kind of stuff. And they wanted to appear to be totally in control, but they loved the fact they were being loved. They just loved the fact they got the access that they couldn't get. And we know that they were going to tell everybody, oh, well, I met with this people, and it's got big kudos to them. So basically in that situation, made the ask and say, if you don't, this is the bottom line. If you don't get access anymore, period. But they loved the feeling of being loved so much that they then acquiesced and did the thing that they weren't initially going to give to start off with. It's just a different version of puppy dog. We just made them, we made them so loved, and they felt so loved. They didn't want to lose that feeling, that loving feeling, as the great song says.
Which refers back to previous lesson and the bonus video on 8 steps to cult indoctrination techniques.
Obviously,
love bombing, and then withdrawing it. Yeah.
When I did some psychometric, I did some tests, a battery of tests. I've had so many of them. And one of them came out to security people. One of them came out and said, you'd make a good cult leader. And I said, I've already done that.
Excellent. Number 5 on the list of 9 examples, the scale clause. Effectively, that is literally asking the client, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 down here being really, this isn't for me, and 10 up here being, wow, this fulfills all the criteria, exactly ticks all the boxes, and it is exactly what I want. Thinking about it yourself right now, where up that scale would you say you are in terms of your decision on whether you do want to buy this today? Now, I've added a bit of stuff there to the scale. The scale clause is just about going 0 down here, 100% up there. How high up are you towards buying, and asking a percentage, and then if they give one back, whatever it may be. So let's say, I'd say probably about 68%. They just come up with a figure. You go, okay, that's interesting. I'm just wondering, could you tell me why it's not higher? What is it that I'd need to do for you today so that you were ready and up here? And you see, non-verbally, I'm spatial anchoring again automatically. But also, if you look at the 4-hour video bonus that came with lesson 1 about how and why all hypnosis and psychological talking therapies work, you'll see that I believe that I teach on there the 0 to 10 scale thing. If I don't worry. Inside the shitnosis, helping you get over the shit in your life and get your shit together, PDF book that's in one of the sections of the members area. There is a video in there where I teach the 0 to 10 scale as I use it in therapy, or it could be the 0 to 100% scale in this case as a scale clause for sales. And that's the idea that I'm also visually doing stuff, not just saying it. In sales books, they talk about asking them, saying, if there's, 0% was totally not for me and 100% was ready to buy right now, where up that scale would you say we are now? Or would you say you are now?
Yeah.
Whereas in the example, if you watch back, I was going more, look, you know what? If zero's down here, totally not for me. If you were thinking about it, you might be thinking, no, that's not for me. That's zero down here. And up here was 100% ready to buy, wanting to take this away right now today, because it ticks all the boxes. It's exactly what you want. Where up this scale, and non-verbally, I'm implying that they're higher up than they might have said. Where up this scale would you say you are? And because of those non-verbals, they're likely to give a higher number than they would have done before, thus convincing themselves they're more ready to buy than they actually necessarily were. But in any event, whatever number they give me still gives that opportunity, unless they go 100%, in which case they basically just said, get the pen out and get them to sign the contract. But if they say 60, 78, whatever, you can come back with the, okay, that's interesting. I'm just wondering, could you help me understand what it would take for me to do to help you so that you'd be happy, so it would tick those other boxes? What boxes do we need to tick? And then they will tell you everything you need to be able to do or say or put them at rest on, so that they've already effectively committed to buying as long as those things were done. At which point you could go, so if I deal with this, we'll do that, we'll do that, we'll do that. So with all that said, before you were at like 68%, you said that if we dealt with all them, you'd be here at 100%. Would it be fair to say that you're 100% now? That gives them the final chance to come out with any final objections. But if not, they're kind of backed into a corner that now's the time to buy. It's the scale, the percentage, the scale clause it's called.
Yeah, and that scaling is great. I mean, it works beautifully. And so if we're going to carry on let's give you some different examples. Here's another example. You can use it in business. You can use it in creating partnerships. And I certainly use it in some of the other work that I've done as well. So it could go something like that is, how interested are you in working with us on X interventional project? Oh, okay. And they're saying, well, not that interested because, or I am interested, but, and they kind of give you, but they're also playing a bit of the pride game as well. They're trying to, they don't want to give too much away. They've got to be seen as in power. And then you come back with, now their scale. You say, well, that's interesting because there's another two organizations or two businesses, two people, to whatever your scale of people who we can bring into this. Now, admittedly, they don't have all the bits and pieces that you've got. However, we will work with them to bring them up to speed, and they will be able to provide valuable blah, 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 blah. And it's just a different way of using the scale thing, because we're getting from them, where are you at on this scale? We're doing this thing. How interested are you in joining us? Yeah, okay. We really want them, by the way, and we're testing where they're at. But we also got some alternatives over here. And it's your A and B negotiating zone in some respects. And you're using scale to test, calibrate, position yourself, put yourself in a position to move things from A to B. And it really works really, really well, actually. And you need that in certain situations. You want to know whether people are with you or not and under what conditions.
Now, selling a product, it's relevant to what we've just said, but if you want, you can actually flip this and use it to decrease the percentage, as we explain on that bonus video with lesson 1, so that it can start off as, okay, I understand. So from everything you've said, if 0 was down here, was absolutely no problem whatsoever, and 100% up here is the worst it ever was in the past, like ripping your hair out, really, really fucking terrible. The worst it could ever be, trauma, negativity, pain, etc. Where on the scale would you say you're right now? Obviously, at the time it happened, it was up here, 100, 150%, maybe, who knows? But where is it right now? And they say 100%, 90%, 80%. It doesn't particularly matter. They give a mark or a starting point. But they can then go through in therapy the important seeming ritualistic process. It's just a mind distraction. That's all taught elsewhere. So that then, by implication, we can go, okay, so down here 0, nothing. no issue whatsoever. Up there's 100%, the worst it ever was in the past, when it used to bother you the worst, when it happened. Before you said you were at like 83%, you've already done some fantastic work here today with me. And you know what? I was just wondering where now on the scale, bearing in fact that 0 down here is nothing, gone completely, no problem whatsoever is right here. Where down on that scale would you say it's reduced to right now?
Yeah, okay.
And everything's pointing non-verbally to get them to give a lower number. Now, quite often in therapy, as explained elsewhere, it will go down to 0, it'll go to a ridiculously low level. But if it doesn't, as long as it moves, even if it's only 5%, even if it's only 1%, the fact that they're saying it, they're saying to themselves they believe a change has been made in the right direction of reducing. So you can go through another important seeming ritualistic process, go through this again with the spatial anchoring and non-verbal, till they say a lower one. And again, the moment they say it out loud, they're saying to they're consciously bypassing the critical faculty and saying, yes, it has reduced. So they then believe it and it becomes their new reality. And very rapidly, as explained in the bonus video with lesson 1, this can be used as the key to take people from a 0 down to like no problem whatsoever, or down to 5-10% where they say it doesn't bother them like it used to in the past, in a matter of a few minutes.
But that's really useful, that, because the other thing we can do with that, with the scaling thing, is say somebody is stuck. So I was working with therapeutically, actually, therapeutic coaching. I was working with somebody and I used some scaling stuff and they were stuck. And I was saying, so tell me about a time when it did reduce, something did reduce from a 10 to a 2. And what were you doing? What was done? Tell me about how it happened. And of course, now they're telling me their success strategy for 10 to 2. I now have coded that in my head and I can use that linguistic structure and strategy and technique into, or ritual, into their context, into the present context, to reduce it. They're already in a solution mindset because they're telling me how it went, the structure of how it went from 10 to 2. So you can use scaling in all sorts of different situations. I think it's really neat as well. And you can do it quite playfully, which is good fun. I do it with my kids.
Nice. Number 6, the soft clause. Well, it's almost the being so calm and relaxed, giving out that body language. I am not desperate for a sale. I'm not the salesperson who is relying on your sale to be what pays my mortgage this month. This product is so fucking good that, take it or leave it, it will genuinely be your loss, not mine, if you don't take this, because you will end up paying more for something inferior elsewhere. Type of mentality, internal script wise, so that body language, it's like, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. Have you got any other questions, or was that covered it all? If it has, I mean, I think we've got like 3 of these left in stock. It's up to you. It's like being almost blasé. Maybe not to quite that extent, because it might look, come across as a bit like you're not caring for the customer enough. But it's not being the stereotypical preconceived idea of a salesperson who's pushing. It's not reeking of desperation. It's being calm and relaxed and truly confident and congruent in the knowledge that, you know what, if you don't buy, it's fine. There'll be somebody else right along who does see the benefits of this and who does want to take advantage of the fact that this, whilst it might be ever so slightly dearer to buy right now than the competitor's version, the thing is, this doesn't break down as often. You won't need as many repairs. So ultimately, over the next 1, 2, 3 years, you're going to be saving a fortune on what you would if you went over here just saving money right now. But it's up to you. That type of, it's being soft, calm, relaxed.
And you've got, and it helps if you're supremely confident without being arrogant as well. If actually, I know this is really good. This is going to work. This is a great product. And it helps if you are pretty booked up as well, if you're selling a service or a product. But in other worlds as well, people smell the reek of desperation reeks, and people pick up on it because it feels like you're fawning, clamoring, clawing away at trying to get something, and it puts people off. Because also the thing that is always good to hold in our minds is in heavily regulated markets. So if you're working in finance, if you're working in law, if you're working in a service sector, certain therapeutic sectors that would be highly regulated, or there's lots of competition out there, what separates you and your product from everybody else and their product? Well, the products are more or less the same. What separates you is you. It's whether they like you, they trust you. So do I trust somebody who is desperate? Well, unless they're drowning and they're desperate, I understand, but I trust somebody who is confident, calm, assured. Oh yeah, I'm going to give you my trust. But actually, if you're clawing away and you're constantly, oh no, please don't, that calm thing is attractive to lots of people. And in certain high stakes situations, people look to people who are calm, not to people who are thrashing around. They look to the calm person. So be the calm, assured person. People are by you.
And in sales context, also, we can add on to that. With the soft close alone, some might say it's a high pressure technique, but like anything, it's how it's put across, really. Is that if you were truly confident in your product, there are exceptions to this. There's certain things where guarantees don't need to be given because it literally is such a high price item that it is literally a case of there's so few of them a year made that you either want it or you don't. Don't bother asking for a discount. If you want one of the next release of the latest Bentley Continental cars, you are paying the price they tell you. Yeah. In fact, you're probably going to pay more than the price they tell you because that's just the basic version and you're going to end up wanting other bits on top. Yes. There's going to be no negotiation. It's going to be take it or leave it. Yeah. And you're going to pay for it up front and it's going to be delivered when they tell you it's ready. There are certain things where everything we say kind of almost can go out the window because of the position, the branding, the authority that the person or the context or the product's got. But for the majority of us, or the majority of things, if you were truly confident in the product, you'd be like that mattress company that would give somebody a 28-day trial run.
Yeah.
Or if that's financially not possible, because they could steal off you. So, for example, with my Elite Hypnosis Bootcamp, shameless plug, details at ultimatehypnosiscourse.com. I don't offer a free 28 days because people could go in and download, if they stayed up day and night, they could download within 28 days a small percentage of what's contained in the members area. They'd have to probably stay away day and night for several months to download everything. But the point is they could get a lot of it and then at the end of the month go, no thanks. Now, I know most people are honest and wouldn't do that, but you know what? I value what's in there, and I've seen the results from people around the world who I've taught it to, and I credit the contents of the bootcamp, or at least some of them, being seen by yourself, for example, as you said before, and you seeing the correlation between our different worlds to this starting off as an embryo and becoming something that we're making to help other people expand. So I don't offer the mattress trial because it's not something I can't take it back from them in the way a mattress could be taken away. However, the other option is to offer people, if you're truly confident in your product, a guarantee beyond any guarantee of your competitors. Now, when you're ordering stuff online in the digital world, you've naturally got, in most countries anyway, a kind of 30-day money-back guarantee anyway, whether the person selling you the stuff tells you or not. This is what comes under consumer trading laws. They may not mention it on their websites because they don't want to draw attention to it, and thus they're reducing the level of refunds they may get. Well, that's a company that isn't fully got confidence in its product, clearly.
Yeah.
Because If they had full confidence, they'd offer a guarantee that went beyond that, which they're legally obliged to offer, or beyond that, which could happen. So, for example, people selling stuff online, if people pay via PayPal, in theory, with PayPal transactions, you can dispute what you bought up to 6 months down the line. And the longer you leave it, the less likely PayPal are to find in your favour, obviously. But there's still that possibility that it's going to go past the 30 days required by law. So sod it. If potentially up to 6 months down the line, you could end up getting a refund request, albeit that, don't forget, if someone signed into a contract and agreed that by buying, they're kind of going, if I use any of this stuff, I'm not entitled to a refund because I've consumed it. Like, you can't get a refund on a loaf of bread after you've eaten it. Then that, what I'm saying, is moot. But all of these things combined is what led me to go, you know what? Nobody else anywhere in the world that I'm aware of, unless they've changed it, but certainly in the past several years, nobody offering accredited clinical hypnotherapy or psychological talking therapy training, such as that you can see at ultimatehypnosiscourse.com. None of them are offering a full 100% satisfaction, results-driven money-back guarantee that is of a 12 months, 1 year duration. Whereas I blatantly state that when you join my Elite Hypnosis Bootcamp, I'm guaranteeing you'll never need to spend another penny on hypnotherapy, hypnosis, NLP, call it what you will, psychological talking therapies training, or entertainment hypnosis training, or mentalism, mind control type training, ever again with anyone in the world, or on the marketing, advertising, publicity, and promotion angles to be able to build a business. And so confident I am that I back it up and say that you are guaranteed to earn at least 12,000 United States dollars, 12,000 euros, or 12,000 pounds sterling, bottom line additional profits after cost and expenses. So actual bottom line extra profits in the 12 months from joining the bootcamp than you did in the previous 12 months before joining, even if you join as a complete novice, starting their business from scratch. I'm guaranteeing you'll earn at least 12,000 profit. If you're an existing business, I'm guaranteeing you will increase your bottom line profits by at least £12,000, euros or sterling, or your money back. No one else has the balls to offer a guarantee like that. And that's what sets apart the bootcamp from what other people are offering. But generally, when I'm not on a video like this, that was probably got into the realms of being a bit bordering on high pressure sales, as opposed to just go and look at ultimatehypnosiscourse.com. Yeah. And it is literally saying, here's the deal, go and look elsewhere. Literally try and find somebody else offering you the same content, the same quality, for the same ridiculously low price that comes back by an even remotely close guarantee. And I know you can't, so I can be the soft close of come back when you're ready.
Yeah, I mean, I got no skin in the game with what I'm just about to say in terms of what's in the boot camp, other than I bought into it. One thing that I will say is that if people immerse themselves in it, properly immerse themselves in it, one of the biggest things, and you use the word over and over again, actually, during this call, is confidence. And that plays into all sorts of things. We know with placebo effect, Pygmalion, Hawthorne, and congruence, rapport, body language, tonality. We are altogether different in how we communicate when we're confident. Selling increases, sports performance enhances, negotiations are more successful. We create win-win scenarios. Everybody's better as a result of when we are confident, not arrogant, but confident. We know who we are. We know how we're going to do things. Because as as I broke down, and I listened to a lot and looked at a lot, because I'm an immersive kind of individual, as I came across your stuff and I started to break it down, I thought, right, you might be using different words and phrases than some of the people in my world have used, some of the people in other worlds use. I'm fairly wide in my reading, etc. However, fundamentally, the building blocks are exactly the same. And if you apply them with intention over time through practice as well, and as your confidence grows, you cannot not see results. It will just happen. And confidence is huge when it comes to people being successful. Provided you got the right building blocks, regardless of what the semantic terminology is around them, whether you call it this and somebody else calls it that, actually the building blocks are the building blocks. And that's why people call lots of different things the same thing, lots of different things, because they use different words, and it could be genuinely they think it's called something else, or genuine it's a flipping brilliant marketing ploy, or genuinely all of the above. Doesn't matter. The fact is, you build with those building blocks with Elite Bootcamp and everything else you've got in there, which is more than I've gone through, you're going to see results. And confidence, that's worth a fortune to people. If people can bottle confidence, and some of the way you can do it is just simply through immersing yourself in the material and then practicing. I say to people, if you want to get better at the stuff I do, learn the stuff, but practice it in low stakes situations where the feedback loops are quite quick. So friends and family and fun, going to a party, going to here, there, and just practice some of the language patterns, practice some of the body language, practice some of the elicitation, practice some of the this, practice some of the that, practice some of the whatever it is. And it's the same with the material in the boot camp, because it's way more than hypnosis you're teaching. You're teaching a whole way of approaching people in situations with intention to help them move from A to B. And it might be wrapped up in all sorts of things that some people might think. So I'm the good cop. So sometimes I was like, Flip, that's a bit in your face. But that's all on purpose. Of course, it's all on purpose, because you're just applying the principles to different contexts and situations and different personality types to gravitate towards them. But the principles are the same and they just work. Anyway, I'm not being paid.
Hopefully viewers and listeners will also get that was the embryonics that led to this being put together, interpersonal neural synchrony. Because of seeing so many similarities, wanting to point them out and also awaken people to the fact that don't get hung up on the fancy terms some people call things. Keep it simple, stupid, or keep it short and simple. And that's what we're doing through these lessons. And carry on doing. I just made a note there. Nice there. And practice calling. I'll come back to them when we've done the last three. Because what you said about practicing in low stakes environments to build up your confidence to then be able to do it in high stakes. I've got a little tip on that in a minute. But first of all, number 7, sales closing, takeaway close, which is, you kind of see it you can see it visually on websites where there's like the bronze, silver, gold, and platinum package.
Yeah.
And one direction it would be you could call it the add to clause, as in, do you want the bronze that's got this in? Silver, you're getting all of bronze plus some more. Gold, you're getting all of the silver and bronze plus some more. Platinum, you're getting all of the others and some more. So, but it's called the takeaway clause because if you're in a face-to-face thing, it'd be go, okay, so are you ready to sign? Whatever. And they go, no, why is that? 10 grand, it's a bit too much. Oh, okay. What sort of budget were you looking at? They might say 8.5. You go, okay. I tell you what, if we were to just give you the normal seat covers rather than the leather ones, yeah. And if we were to just put the black and white reversing screen rather than the full color one in, and a few other bits and bobs. If we were to take them out, but everything else remained as we've already agreed, we could do that for 8.5. Shall we go for that now? And it's the idea, basically, it's literally taking something away. Now, it might be something, it's got to be something that perceptively seems credible for the reduction, but in truth, from your point of view as a person selling, it might not be a deal breaker. It's just that you've got to take something away, or it could be that you've got to take something out to reach a midpoint that's affordable for you to make a profit and affordable for them. But yeah, the takeaway clause.
I've got nothing further to add on that. It's
self-explanatory, I suppose. But that's give and take in negotiation, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, for people who want to sort of get their teeth into some of this, you can look at William Urey's stuff on getting to yes and getting past no. And he talks about A and B negotiating zones and talks about BATNA and WATNA. BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated, best alternative, and worst alternative. That's all you need to remember out of those two. And it's basically working out in any negotiation, right? What's the gold standard? That's everything. Woohoo! You know, I get it all. Brilliant. Woo! World peace. Everything. Yeah, woohoo! Like that. Or actually, what's the minimum I'm prepared to settle for and still walk away with my head held high? And you got to consider all the context you're negotiating into, and who your stakeholders are as well. So get a piece of paper, an A4 piece of paper, and say, this is what I want. This is pretty good, and this is okay enough. But also make sure you've got the needs, not just of yourself and the other person, but the needs of the people that you're representing over here, because you've got to take them with you once you've made the agreement. So I suppose that's a sophisticated version of the takeaway.
It is indeed.
Indeed.
This is why I go first and then let you the clever one.
Rabbit on about something.
It shows the different context. Number 8, summary clause. It is what it is. So we've talked about this, and this. You wanted this, and this, and this, and it's summarizing that which has been discussed by both parties when you feel a point has come where there's no more resistance or obstruction or questions. So what's the point in wasting any more time? It's either it's now or never type of thing.
Yeah, and there's so many. I mean, all these techniques, all these 9 closing techniques. One thing they all have in common is they are either being driven by or they'll lead to eliciting more information. So if anybody's got, you deploy it, somebody's got a question, they'll throw up, yeah, but. They on the next one, yeah, but whatever the yeah, but is gives you more data to use with. So you're going through the summary of this. Is that everything? Yeah, but I was just thinking about this. Oh, I'm pleased you bring that up because it's really important that we make sure that that's covered off. They come up. Oh yeah, that's an interesting point. I agree that we would need to look at this, and this, and how about and all the time it's the energies moving because the destination is not the cul-de-sac where they're umming and ahhing. The destination is yes. Simple.
Yeah. And then obviously more relevant to people you perhaps identified as being the very analytical, critical, skeptical type person is the analytical clause. And that's really putting emphasis on what some might call the negatives, but also showing why it's not a negative. Yeah. It's giving the logical, rational argument more so than the focus on perhaps positive emotions, which a lot of other sales clauses, puppy dog taking, it's an emotional thing, whereas the analytical clause is more logic.
Yeah. But there's an interesting thought there. I was working with some people in a country that is associated with being very logical and analytical, and people are emotionally invested about being logical and analytical. So it's still emotionally driven. There's like, well, I'm more logical than you, and they're like kind of like woohoo. But that's a drive. That's an emotional drive behind that. So you're still playing into emotion, but you're still playing into emotion, but you're just doing it with a logical cover on it. And actually, you can help yourself, particularly if you notice that when they're talking logically, they're doing what we were saying, the analog marking, or they're writing things down. You can actually match that. So okay, we've looked at that, that, and that, or we've looked at that, that, and that, depending on how they do it. So you match them, whether it's left to right in hands or up to that, you know, from top to bottom, or if they're using a, you know, that you notice that they mark with a pen. You go, so we've looked at that, that, and that. So we're using our pen and our pad. All we're doing is we're anchoring all the things into people that they associate with how they choose to make a decision. And that comes from the fact that you've just taken the time to elicit their structure, and then you play whatever linguistic structure, physiological, tonal structure back to them, creates the mirror neuron trigger, and happy days.
Excellent. So yeah, those things are expanded on in other contexts as well inside the members area. 9 examples. There's shed loads more out there in the world, but to be honest, like anything, you can, if you spend too much time focusing, if you're into sales, let's learn 1,050 different sales closing techniques. So I've got one for every situation. Well, no, you know, generally speaking, 2 ears, 1 mouth, observation, calibration, all the things we've talked about, nudging things along and dealing with objections, reducing resistance is the key to all of them anyway, when done properly. Be good at a few things rather than, you know, the more you do something, the more muscle memory you get, so to speak. Now, perhaps egotistically, hey ho, nothing new there for me. But no, perhaps egotistically, or just confident and proud of the fact. In talking about sales, there's a company in England. They also work around the world now, in big department stores in England, in London, in Selfridges, Harrods, Hamleys, the big toy store, in other countries, in stores of equal prestige, as it were. A company called Marvin's Magic that make magic tricks for kids. And in these big stores, they will have somebody demonstrating the trick and then offering it up for sale to the crowd that they've attracted to watching the trick. And in 1990, at the age of 15, I went and auditioned for Marvin's Magic, and I became the youngest at that time person ever employed or engaged by Marvin's Magic to be a demonstrator of these tricks. So that Christmas in the Bolton, a little northern town in the northwest of England, Bolton's Debenhams department store, I was selling these tricks in October, November, December, leading up to Christmas, and January in the new year. And long story cut short, because you can read the full story inside the book Perfect Pitch, The Art of Selling Magic Tricks for Fun and Profit, which I'm giving you in the members area, not because I'm thinking that you want to learn how to pitch magic tricks, but because of the lessons that I'm coming to that you've learned from within. Namely that I went about things a bit differently to the other demonstrators, and because of that, I ended up being, and the evidence is there in the members area, I became the highest, at the time, the highest selling demonstrator for Marvin's Magic. So much so that in one day alone, I sold more as a single demonstrator than any other single demonstrator did in an entire week, even in like the London stores like Harrods and Hamleys. That's how fucking good I was. I know that's arrogant. Which is why I was then later asked to go into other stores for them and asked to go to this exhibition they were doing at the Barbican Centre in London, which I couldn't accept that contract because I had other stuff on. But at the time, I was the best. I'm sure there must have been people since, although I'm not aware of them. Hey-oh. The point being, the key lessons here, and this is why I'm giving you a copy of the book Perfect Pitch to have a look at. Not because I think you want to go demonstrating magic tricks, but if you did, it's the best book on the subject. It's because there were a few keys here. Just because everybody's always done something a certain way doesn't mean that it always has to be done that way. Quite often the people who make it more successful in an industry or a profession are the ones who break the mold. Now, just to put this contextually, I'm not saying go and break all the rules we've been teaching you. No, 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 that would be stupid and could get you killed in circumstances like Paul's worked in. But there is always an exception to the rule as well, even in circumstances Paul's operated in. There will be times when all logic or previous experience has probably gone out the window and all the rules have been broken, and thank fuck it's paid off. And it can quite often be those moments sometimes that makes the difference, And that's why I was so successful. I did it differently. I worked smart, not hard, and you can as well. Other demonstrators were demonstrating minute after minute, hour after hour. I didn't. I put a sign up, one of these clocks, and it had a thing on, and on my stand it said next magic show at, and a time on it. So that shoppers would see this and they'd come back for that time to see the free magic show. Not to be sold magic tricks, but to come for the free magic show. Which I did do a free sort of 15, 20-minute magic performance once an hour on the hour, rather than demonstrating for the full hour. I had 40 minutes an hour off and went in the staff room having brews and talking to people. And yet I still made more money than all the other stores where they were working. Because the people came because I wasn't selling anything, apparently. I was giving them a free magic show and they could bring the kids, or they were interested themselves, whatever. And my emphasis then was to entertain them and make them laugh. Laughter is the key. When people are laughing and enjoying themselves, the critical faculty, analytical area, executive function is automatically bypassed and goes out the window. They feel good. You can literally, hence the old saying, you can laugh a woman or a man into bed. You can. So I'd do the magic show, and then at the end, I'd go, by the way, do you want to know how it's all done? And show of hands, and I get them all to put their hands up in the air, which is a yes there. Okay, you all want to know how it's done. If I was to tell you now how it's all done, would you want to know? And I'm saying the same thing, but a different way. And I go, okay, so if I gave you the opportunity right now to discover how to do these tricks and a whole bunch of other ones besides, so that either you could use them yourself to go down the pub and get free drinks from your friends and regulars in the pub, or you could give this and teach it to your son or your grandson so that they can be the life and soul of the next school performance or whatever. How many of you would be interested in learning that right now? Come on. And I put my hand up and make them follow. So we've got yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And then I just go, you know what? All of the tricks that I've done for you today are in this deluxe box of magic tricks. And I've only got a few left, as you can see there. So I'll tell you what, I'll give you one now. I'll give you one there. Give you one. If you want one, you're going to have to come forward quick and get these and get them to the till. Yeah. And they've already agreed to buy before I point out, but they came there in the first place because there was something for them, free entertainment. Then I make them feel good. So almost reciprocation's kicking in. Element that we talked about. There's so many elements going on there, and I break them down on what they are in the perfect pitch, the art of selling magic for fun and profit, that I'm putting in the members area for free. Because you'll see so many lessons we've talked about in there, and I'd be interested to hear your observations on what I've just mentioned, Paul.
Yeah, when I was listening to you talking, it got me thinking about, you know, when you were talking about actually there's just sometimes other ways of doing things, etc. I think when it comes to, regardless of whether you call it persuasion, hypnosis, seduction, selling, etc., I mean, what you talk and what you teach are those principles pointed in different contexts, and it demonstrates that it works regardless of where you go. And in my other world and some of the other stuff I do, okay, I know all this stuff around analysis, whether it's linguistic, written body, all those kinds of different things, and what you can say and what you can do. But I think that in the same way as your magic show, which actually you were primarily there to sell, but then you did something other than selling, you were entertaining, and then selling came off the back of it. In my world, in relationship building or whatever, people use all sorts of fancy phrases for it, which sound far more 005.5 because I'm 5.5 foot, but sound far more that. It's about, for me, it's about absolute focus on the other person positive regard, suspending my judgment, and genuinely, not make-believe, actually, I get myself into a position where I genuinely want to add as much value through showing interest as possible. Because sometimes these people haven't been listened to at that depth and interest and that quality of listening, not just listening and then so I can say my next thing, but really deeply listening and connecting. And I don't know what's happening in, for a moment, let's get a bit more woo-woo or not. There are things that are probably happening at a quantum level, that neurosynchrony that we're talking about, that thing that we start to come into tune with each other, which
vibrational energy alignment.
Yeah, and which is this neurosynchrony is actually the science of, hang on a minute, this is being triggered and we're in sync now. And I think if people will forget all of the techniques, because there's so many of them, and you can play with some and build your confidence. But really at the heart of it is this sense of, I am absolutely fundamentally interested in you as a human being. I'm prepared to suspend my ego and judgment to listen at a level that you might not have experienced before. And for some reason, people feel it. Of course, the byproduct of that, and let's be honest about this, it might not be the intention, but the byproduct is people want to say yes. People trust you, so they're going to buy from you, etc. And selling in that respect becomes, it's just a natural byproduct. Now we can learn some skills to augment that deep interest in someone else, to actually take them from the friend zone to the yes zone, whatever that yes zone is, because there are zones. But actually fundamentally, the same way as you were entertaining people with magic and then they bought, as opposed to, I'm going to sell you magic through demonstration, you're demonstrating because it was fun and they were enjoying it, is the same as developing a relationship with somebody and listening at a level they've not really been listened to maybe on that subject, and they just want to say yes. And I think Disraeli, the famous former prime minister many, many moons ago in the UK, was known at dinner parties as the person who, gosh, he was so interesting. Why? Because he was so interested. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's that maxim going through of, you're so interesting because you're interested. And people say yes. Now, you can then start to think through, how do we apply that to sales, business, whatever. And that's what we're doing in this course, is we're breaking those elements down. But at the core of it is this deep interest in other people at the expense of our ego and suspending our judgment, to put them center stage in whatever stage we're in, whether it's the selling stage, the entertainment stage, the relationship stage, whatever it is. And I think that's at the heart of it all. And they feel it. They know if you're there or not. Definitely.
Excellent. I have two more things noted down as bullet points for this lesson, and then we're going to bring lesson 4 to an end. In lesson 5, we will be talking about dissociative identity disorder, multiple personality disorder, defragmentation of the mind, schizophrenia, different types of personality disorder, DSM-5, what relevance any of this is to persuasion, influence, and negotiation and therapy, together with, we could do these bullet points, elicitation, forensic statement analysis, the stuff that I teased at last episode, but we didn't get to in this episode. So you know what? Ways to spot liars, but also how to beat lie detectors. Way to spot people who are scared, but ways not to look scared. Ways to spot people who are nervous, but ways to stop yourself looking nervous. We'll cover the flip side. That's what we're getting into in the next episode. Some really good stuff as we go into episode lesson 5. And then in lesson 6, we're going to tie it all together once more. But if you bear in mind as we go along that all these things interrelate and cross-relate, and it just depends on the context and the environment they're being used in, or intentions, which hopefully are all ethical and positive. But drawing back to close this lesson to what Paul said about practicing a low stakes environment. So this example wouldn't work in a 005.5 context. It could possibly work in some business environments. Certainly if you're having a social drinks meet at a bar before the next meeting where it was going to go to another level, and you wanted the person to end up thinking that you are Mr. I can read your mind, I can detect your body language type person, so that they then, because of that, would leak things even more, like Paul spoke about before, because of their fear or their belief and their perception that you can spot it anywhere. Or they try to hide it more, but by trying to hide it more, they amplify it more, making it easier for you. So you need what we call a convincer, something that convinces them that what you say you can do, and better than they perhaps perceived it be possible. Now, as a hypnotist, that might be getting someone to put their hands out in front of them, interlock their fingers, press their hands tightly together, squeeze their thumbs down on top, extend their forefingers, separate them about an inch. If that's an inch, I've no bloody worries. And then to look me directly in the eyes. In fact, do it. Viewers at home, hands out in front of you, interlock your fingers, press your palms tightly together, thumbs down on top, extend your 2 forefingers, separate them about an inch, then stare directly into my eyes, not around the eyes, into the eyes. And as you do, I want you to imagine in your mind's eye, in a way that feels right for you, that it's almost as if you've got the world's strongest magnets on the tips of your fingers. And as I count backwards from 3 down to 1, it's almost as if those magnets are starting to draw together, or pull together, attract together, and get closer together with every breath that you take. Every noise that you hear, every word that I say, and every thought that you think, merely serving as a sign and a signal on the count of 3 for those fingertips to start to get closer and closer, as on 2. Just so long as you use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration, as I'm sure you will, you find that those fingers start to become closer and closer together, as it's almost as if someone's taken a piece of rope and they're tying that rope around your fingers into a knot, and as that knot gets tighter, it pulls your fingers closer, more rapidly together, as on 1. Just prove to yourself you've done it right. Look down and notice that your fingertips are touching. For some of you, they're touching fully. For some of you, they're locked together. For others, they'll just have got closer than they were before. We're on limited time here, but in any event, they're back to normal. You can separate your hands now. Okay. Now, the thing is, if I was with you physically, I can slow down what I'm saying to be in pace and timing with what's happening. The bottom line is, this is a physiological trick. And in the position when the fingers are separated, if I was to say nothing and you weren't to look at your fingers, hence look at me, sooner or later, your fingers will naturally start drawing together, because the tendon on the back of the hands makes them do it, which you can experiment with yourself. You'll see you start to feel it. But I present it as though I'm suggesting things. You're imagining them in the context of me being the professional hypnotist. And because I'm presenting it as though I believe this will work, Pygmalion effect, you then perceive, they believe it's going to work. You know what? I believe it's going to work, because they're supposed to be a world famous television hypnotist, so it's more likely to work. You're attaching your mind to that idea. Whereas in truth, I'm just waiting for the tiredness of the muscles and the tendons to naturally start drawing the fingers together. And as I would see that happen to you, that is the point when I would go and notice, now they're starting to get closer together. Well, they are, but it would have naturally happened anyway. But you will come to the conclusion, because you're getting evidence that it's genuinely happening, that it's happened because I've suggested, given you a command, and that you have succumbed to that hypnotic influence, imagined it, and it's become reality. And the moment I can get you to a point where you believe wholly and sincerely that I suggest things, say things, you imagine them using your intelligence, imagination, and concentration, meaning you're stupid if you don't do it, type of thing, deciphered. Yeah. And then you believe that that is what becomes reality. The moment you believe that's the case, then actually it will also genuinely become the case. An example more body language wise would be, sometimes I'll get someone, take a coin out of your pocket. So I get them to say 50 pence. Okay, I'm going to turn my back. I'd like you to put the coin in one of your hands, but then obviously close both your fists, so I don't know which one it's in. Okay, tell me when you've done that. And they'll say, done it. I'll go, okay. Before I turn back round, can you just hold the hand you've got the coin in, can you just hold it up into the air? Okay, high into the air, so that everyone else at the party can see which hand it's in. I'm not saying that you'd lie to me, but I just want everyone to know which hand it's in. Okay, excellent, that's brilliant. And now bring it down in front of the other, and then I turn around, and what I do is I look for which hand looks palest, because while I've been talking and I've got them to have their hand up in the air, blood will drain.
Yeah.
So that the hand with the coin in, because it's been in the air, will be a slightly different colour to the other hand. But then I can repeat it slightly differently if I so choose with somebody else or the same person and go, I'll turn my back again, put it in one of your hands. And what I want you to do, just think of which hand it's in, but don't tell me verbally. And I turn back, and invariably, it's not 100% reliable, but invariably, their nose will be pointing in the direction of the hand that the coin's in. Better than that is to get from a magic shop, such as a website such as magicweek.co.uk, go and buy a magnetic coin. So it will look like 50p, for example, or a pound coin, but it's actually magnetic. And search on a magic shop for electric magnet detector, or on eBay, magnetic magnet detector mentalism or magic trick. And you can get a little device that's battery powered that has a little wire that goes down your sleeve and goes under your wrist. It's got a little bit that looks like the top of a microphone, but it's only small. And when that comes close to a magnet, it causes this little unit that can be down your pants to vibrate slightly, telling you that's where the magnet is. So you can turn your back, they can put the coin wherever they want. You turn around and because they've got both the hands out, and you just bring your hands close, but don't touch them. And this is where the detector is. If you bring your hands close like that, you go, it's in one of those hands. Well, if this one, as it comes close to the hand in front of it, makes it vibrate, then it's in that hand. If it doesn't make it vibrate, then it must be in their other hand. And you can get this every time. But because you know with that technique, you're going to get it correct every time, you can play around with it. And before you put your hands out in front of them and go, I'm going to decide on this one because you felt it vibrate, or I'm going to decide on this one because you didn't feel it vibrate over there, you can actually practice eliciting answers to genuine things and finding out where their eye lines go for truths, where their eye lines go for lies, and then ask them, give me the answer, same answer for both hands. So for one hand, you'll be telling the truth, one you'll be lying. Is it in your left hand? Say yes for both. Is it in your left hand? Is it in your right hand? And it gives you a way to practice getting used to spotting the signals, but knowing you're guaranteed to get the result you want, which still acts as a convincer on the person in front of you.
That's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun, that one. Basically, I mean, when polygraphs are run, they do genuine knowledge, genuine truthful knowledge, GTK. And it's basically, you got something rigged up. They ask a whole load of truth. Is your name Paul? Yes. Were you born November 20th? Yes. They ask you stuff that they know is true, and they see you answering truthful, and then they calibrate stuff against that over a period of time. That's very good. Now, you mentioned earlier on, when we get into the next thing, there's a fancy schmancy title for some of it. It's called countermeasures. And so how do you do countermeasures to deal with fear, nervousness, withholding information, defeating polygraph tests or whatever? It's countermeasures. So we can throw some countermeasures out, which would be good and fun for people to play with.
Excellent. Now you've spoken, I'm just going to end because it's the final point that's there for today. Sales, we've talked about power words, headlines, attention, interest, desire, actions, more in the members area. But there is a section in the members area that will be called Put Yourself on the Map, how to put yourself on the map, which is all about marketing, advertising, publicity, and promotion. Now, although the examples given are aimed at hypnotherapists and psychological talking therapists to get more clients, business, and customers, if you're not in that industry, don't worry. It's still worth looking at, because the examples of how to do something that's unexpected, to use pattern interrupts, to elicit emotions, amplify pain, and then provide the relief, the pleasure outcomes that people are more likely to buy, all of them are valid to all industries. You've just got to apply a bit of common sense, and that's why I'm including them in the members area. One last thing, you mentioned in last episode about looking at left eye or right eye, that type of thing.
Yeah.
One of the things, even though there may be no truth in it in the sense of real truth, but it's playing on people's perceptions. Most people generally perceive that if somebody keeps eye contact with you, they're telling the truth. This, as we've already discussed, isn't necessarily the case, but because they believe that, if you wanted to lie, although naturally you're probably more likely, if you wide upright, as you said before, to eyeball them. A little tip, but it also works for hypnotists who want to apparently have that power, is to keep eye contact and appear to be completely keeping total eye contact. Stare at the person's bridge of the nose, just about here. To them, it's perceived as though you're looking directly into their eyes, which as a hypnotist, I gaze here, but it looks like I'm gazing in them. And if I gaze at their nose, but focus on it, so I'm really looking at their nose without going cross-eyed, to the person looking at it, it will be perceived as though I'm almost staring through them. This weird hypnotic feeling, and it helps amplify stuff. However, in normal, everyday life, just looking at the bridge of the nose means I don't break eye contact. They tend to first. And as I talk about different eye cues, as it were, in the seduction set, one key one being, if you stare at a woman or a bloke across the bar, and you suddenly catch their eye line, if they smile, hold the gaze for a bit, that could be good, and maybe you might approach them, whatever. But if they immediately break off to the right in seconds, and there's also that look of disgust that Paul gave them, ain't happening, don't waste your time, or to the other. However, if they catch your eye line, there's a brief, you might even do the brief smile head thing that Paul was on about, smile, and they then smile, and or ideally smile, and then go down with their eye line before turning away to talk to the rest of the group of girls they're with. That is almost like submission downwards. And majority of the time, the context is explained greater on the seduction videos, but the majority of the time, that means you're pretty much guaranteed that they're interested in getting to know you better.
Yeah. We would call that the intimacy gaze. So there's different triangles. Okay. The triangle up. So dominance is you look into the eyes, and then you're looking here, then you look up to the top of the forehead. That's dominance. You look down into the mouth. That's conversational. We're on a level. It's interesting. Look across the eyes and down the body. That's intimacy. So yeah, there you go.
Names for it I wasn't aware of, but same techniques again. It just goes to show.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 gaze zones. So dominance, on the level, intimate.
Excellent. And that brings us to the end of lesson 4. We will be back with you, well, possibly quite soon if you go and watch lesson 5 now, or maybe it'll be tomorrow or the day afterwards when you get time to study lesson 5. But nonetheless, we'll be here waiting for you in the members area. So as always, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
We'll see you in the next lesson.